Welcome to day 2 of the Women Leadership Institute Leadership Course. Thank you so much for joining us. If you were here with us yesterday on day 1, welcome back. And if you were not, we're sorry, you missed a whole lot. But you can catch up with everything today and join the Power Pack program that we have lined up today. We're happy to have you here with us. We thank you for your time, and we know that this is going to be a very transformative session for you. So you're in the right place. Over the last 2 days, we've been talking about adaptive leadership styles and skills in a changing world. We've had some really great content shared from some seasoned professionals. If you register for the course, you should have all the material sent to you at the end of the course. We have a lot more coming today. So you're definitely in the right room if you want to learn some skills and strategies for navigating challenging times, for building leadership skills as women, networking, and mainstreaming gender. So we're going to get started today, but first, would like to welcome you properly and formally to the Women Leadership Institute. So we'll be taking a welcome address from Adora Ugu, who is a WLI board member and also a public finance governance expert with over 18 years experience. So I'm going to hand over to Adora to welcome all of us properly before we start the program.
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Good afternoon, good morning, from wherever you are in the world, and welcome to day 2 of the WLI course on adaptive leadership and styles and skills in a changing world. This is our gift from WLI to you all in this special international month of March, which is Women's Month, and we're glad to have you all today. I'm truly so excited to be part of the WLI journey as an advisory board member of the Institute, because I get to work with all these great people, men and women, who are committed to equipping African women with market relevant leadership skills and technical skills that they need to succeed in business and careers. And the WLI is also one of these organizations that are working towards achieving the SDGs focused on gender equality, empowering women and girls. And in just 3 years, they've trained over 5,000 women. And I think that is pretty exceptional. This year, more than any, I think it's important to mark International Women's Month. And the theme for the month is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in the COVID-19 World. 2020 was the year of the pandemic, and we all felt it. But that year, the UN Women identified something else that they called a shadow pandemic. And data shows that women were disproportionately affected by the pandemic. They represented over 54% of job losses. And it caused a lot of financial strain on women, as we all know, because 90% of women who work in Africa work in the informal sector. And they work as frontline workers and health workers and face greater health risks. But also, we found that there was a very high number, an increased number of violence against women during this period. The fact is that women's participation is extremely important to the response to COVID-19. And we've seen that a lot of female heads of state have been praised for their work in handling the crisis in New Zealand, in Denmark, and in Norway. But with all this, women still remain grossly underrepresented in decision-making. And again, looking at some data, of the 193 countries in the world, only 57 are led by women. Out of 900 Nobel Prize winners, only 53 are women. And for every $1 a man earns, a woman earns 63 cents. So let's bring it home a little bit with all this data. Women make up 49% of Nigeria's population and made up 47% of voters in the 2019 elections, but only 4% of elective positions are held by women. Even though there's overwhelming evidence that when women participate actively in politics and policymaking, laws that affect women and girls are prioritized. I read a lot of interesting research recently, and there was one that talked about women-owned businesses employ 40% more people than 3 of the largest employers combined. That's McDonald's, IBM, and Walmart. We're trying to move the needle a little bit in Nigeria. We're seeing better maternity leave for women, more creches and organizations. Lagos State has definitely taken the lead in that respect. And companies are now including more women in leadership positions in boards and in the public sector where I work, but we're still nowhere near the 35%. So the truth is that leadership in its very nature is gendered. And therefore, women must learn how to recognize and navigate barriers to leadership. This is part of the reason why we're here today. So a little bit about myself. I grew up around really strong female role models, like my mother, who was a medical doctor and managed to run 3 hospitals and raise 6 kids. And my grandmothers and my aunties were all strong female leaders in their own ways. And I saw firsthand some of the challenges and the criticisms that they faced in their journeys. So when I was criticized, for example, for going back to school, Harvard, and leaving my kids and my husband behind, it was a very tough decision. I felt a lot of guilt, but I remembered I had a role model, my grandmother, who had done the same thing when she got on a ship and went to University of Leeds to study midwifery. She's now 94 years old. When I moved from the public sector, from the private sector to the public sector, I took a lot of technical skills from the private sector and made a very bad attempt at applying them directly to the public sector. It did not work. I quickly realized that I had to learn another set of skills entirely to help me with the frustrations and bureaucracy of government. Because as we learned yesterday, the challenges in government are more adaptive than they are technical. You missed a lot yesterday if you weren't here. So really, for me, learning is continuous, and I take pride in calling myself a lifelong student. And as someone once said, once you stop learning, you start dying. And that is why I'm excited about what we're doing at WLI, and I'm excited about today. So yesterday, Wura has already explained what we did in our adaptive leadership session with Hodan Bosman, who was a teaching assistant at the Kennedy School, Harvard, teaching this same framework. We learned the differences between leadership and authority, technical and adaptive work, and the importance of taking risks as women, understanding the system where you operate, its key stakeholders, and building trust. With our session with Professor Atkinson, we focused on entrepreneurship as a style of leadership, and it was power-packed with information about making, managing, and multiplying money, and financing women-owned businesses with funds available from the BOI, the CBN, the DBN is the Development Bank of Nigeria. And also something interesting, volunteerism as a lazy way to financing. I remember that very well. He's suggesting that we should volunteer more of our time to get recognition. During the next couple of hours, though, you'll be learning a lot about networking and support circles, which I find extremely important in today's world, from Ehime Eibe. You're going to learn about leadership frameworks from T. Nwozo, and focused engagement as a tool for gender mainstreaming by Professor Igali. So as we begin our sessions today, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite you, members of the audience, to use your positions of influence and power wherever you find yourselves, at whatever leadership level you are, to advance the cause of women in leadership, changing lives for the better. Let us focus on the positive experiences and pay it forward to other women who are not here today. Every woman who steps forward in leadership and in their leadership roles will make more space for the woman who's coming behind her. Thank you so much and enjoy today's session. Thank you, Wura. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Adora. Thank you for that very warm and educative welcome. Thank you for really setting the stage for us today and explaining why this program is particularly special to us at WLI. It really is our gift to women. We are offering high-level Harvard-taught content in the areas of adaptive leadership framework. Like Adora said, we've learned about practical entrepreneurship lessons. Today, we're going to be talking about skills to enhance network building and strategies to overcome challenges, personal development planning, so much more. And this content is coming to you all free of charge from the Women's Leadership Institute. This is because our entire mission is focusing on transforming Africa through women leadership. So sit back, relax, get ready to learn, get ready to be blown away by some of the content that we're going to share with you all today. And I will go straight into introducing our very first speaker. We have Ehime Ebe, like Adora said. She's going to be taking her lesson focused on networking and support circles. Ehime is the founder of Sweet Kiwi. It's a healthy food brand. And Ehime built this business from the ground up, and it has now become an international brand. She's partnered with several other brands like Guinness, Moet and Chandon, Pepsi, Bailey's, and many more. Ehime has received a number of notable grants, prestigious awards. She's been recognized internationally for her work that she's done, the brilliant work she's done in her industry, and we're truly honored to have her here today with us to share this deep knowledge that she has about entrepreneurship with our women today, free of charge. So thank you, Ahime. Welcome, and I will pass this on over to you.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Adora. Thank you, everyone, for um, the introduction. And I'm really excited to be here today to teach and to contribute to just supporting women and just the vision of WLI. So I'm really excited to join you. I hope you guys are able to make the best of today's session. I have my daughter also in the background, so sometimes you may hear some random baby noises or cries. Please forgive the interruptions. But I'm going to share my screen, and we're talking today about networking. So a lot of people say about how they find it difficult to network. And for me, I used to feel like networking was actually a difficult thing as well until I started to be more intentional about networking and just how to go about networking. So I'm really excited to share a lot of the things that I've learned and how to make um, the best of that as well. So, welcome. So, this is Adaptive Leadership on Networking. So, for today's agenda, we're going to be talking about connecting, how you connect with people. We're going to talk about your network map, how to build a network map. And we're going to be making some commitments today about the changes that we plan to make in the future. So our core objectives today basically is to learn how to build and leverage your professional networks and how you can manage your energy to maximize that performance, and basically setting growth intentions and commitments of how you plan to engage your network going forward. So the rules of the class is to place your questions in the chat, engage with the group in breakout sessions, and also, well, we don't have breakout sessions today, I forgot, but just engage and make sure that you're doing the work and you're building your maps in places where we have exercises and ensuring that you do the work. So this quote is actually one of my favorite quotes. It talks about how the currency of real networking is not in greed, but in generosity. So I'm going to talk about what does that mean exactly. It just means that basically a lot of people think that networking is about taking. Okay, so I need to meet this lady. Oh my God, she's this. She's done so many things. She's going to do this and this and X, Y, Z for me. The real truth is networking is beyond that. Real networking is about how can you assist someone else in the journey of looking for what you're trying to achieve as well. So one of the things that I always like when people approach me, or when I approach people, before I have an ask, you should also have a give as well. So it shouldn't always be about, oh, what am I asking for? Oh, I need you to connect me with this person. Oh, I need you to do this. But what are you giving as well? What value do you bring to the table? Real networking is about an exchange of value. So I should be bringing something to the table. You should be bringing something to the table as well. It shouldn't always be a one-sided relationship. So I want you guys to really think about that as we go along in your relationships and in your networking and the people that you count on or you reach out to and you say, okay, I want this person to be my mentor. Even when you have a mentor, a mentorship relationship is a two-way street. You should be adding value to that person's life just like they're adding value to yours. So I have a mentor who's a lady who's been in the fashion industry for over 25 years or even maybe almost 30 years. And when we first met, I remember saying to her how, oh, hey, I want to help you do this. Oh, I have this information I think will make your business better. You know, I didn't initially start out by saying, hey, I want you to mentor me. It was just about how I could add value to her business based on the insights that I've learned from my own business. And that's how our relationship got started. And then after I had added value to her, then it becomes a bit easier for her too to start looking at ways she can add value to me. So I've never really had to ask her for anything, because a lot of the times I'm focused on how I can add value to her. So she too starts to look for, oh wow, you've done so much for me. How can I help you? You know, how can I add value to your business and to your goals as well? And so that in those dynamics, it's not a one-sided energy draining relationship. It's like we both feed each other, we both support each other, you know, we both prop each other up, and it's mutually beneficial. I think what I'm trying to discuss when we're talking about this, it's relationships that are like basically suck the life out of you. It's always an ask. Oh, can you please do this? Can you please do that? People get tired of that really quickly. They begin to start to see you as a user. They begin to start to see you as someone that they don't want in their life. And we're going to go through that as well when you're drawing your relationship maps. So let's talk about connections. Your support network, what is that like? It's something for you to think about strategically. A lot of people in your life, but do you actually take stock of all the people in your life and what they're doing? It's so important. Just the same way you audit your stock, you audit all the things in your life, you should also be auditing the people that are in your life and what they're doing. Think about them the same way you do business strategy. There should be a strategy for your network as well. You know, think about your personal vision, or if you have a business, or if you work in an organization. What are your goals for that organization? Are you trying to be the COO? Are you trying to be the MD one day? So if you're thinking about what your goals are, your personal vision is, you need to start thinking about how your network and your support network, you need to start thinking about that in a real strategic way to achieve those objectives that you're trying to achieve. You know, and you need to start thinking about it not reactively or transactionally, but strategically. So I talked about transactional relationships, ones that are always focused on take, and ask all the time. Or reactively, oh, I'm in trouble, I need help, who can help me get out of this? No, before you're going to need help, you need to have built the relationships that you need before you need that help. So that's why I say you need to think about it in strategic ways. So you need to distinguish connecting from traditional stereotypes of networking. So it needs to be more about reciprocity and mutual support. I talked about that already. I broke that down. You need to start to build human connections instead of just being transactional, only when I need something, you know. And then you need sponsors, not just to mentor you, but to create opportunities for you, to help you grow, to help you see ahead, because there are people who have done the things that you're doing and they've learned lessons from it. So having relationships with those kind of people can help you a lot of the times avoid several pitfalls, because they've seen ahead already. And a lot of people have already built, a lot of the times you don't have to start building from scratch, because some people have already built a platform, and then all you need to do is stand on the shoulders of what they've already built. So that's why, you know, networking is so important, and being really strategic about thinking about your support network is extremely vital, sorry. So let's talk about network maps. This is actually the biggest chunk of what we're going to be talking about today and what we're going to be learning today. Now that we're starting to think about our network in a real strategic way, this is how we actually do that. So they're different in your network. Everyone in your network, if you're networking, every mentor or anyone who's strategic or who's who's really important to your growth and to the things that you're trying to achieve, they're called sponsors. So you need to learn the different kinds of sponsor types so that you're more strategic in how you use them in your life and in the bid to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So there's different types of sponsor types that we have. I'm sorry. Is the sage, the caregiver, the devil's advocate, the connector, the relentless coach, the visionary, the hero, and the Godfather. The sage is the one who offers you wisdom, teaching, experience, just talks to you about having a deeper meaning, deeper purpose for your life, and just thinking through how you operate and how you communicate with people. So that's what the sage does. The caregiver nurtures. Sorry, my mouse kind of is ticking off. The caregiver is someone who nurtures, who provides reassurance, who protects you, and who lends you a sympathetic ear and creates opportunities that you use for your strengths. I'm sorry, just give me a second to turn that down.
Okay, just hang on, everybody. We're just going to give him a few minutes. Many of us can relate to that situation right now. So we'll just take a few minutes and she'll come back. Okay, so I think what we can do until we get our speaker back is to take a few words from our chairperson, our founder of the Women's Leadership Institute, Ambassador Dr. Kema Chikwe. We'll just have a little intermission. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see you since the screen is on, but if I can ask our program director if there's anything that we can do to put our chairperson on the screen and feature her camera. We're just going to take this as a little intermission, and Ehime will be right back to complete the class. So please don't go anywhere, and don't forget where we stopped. So we'll take an intermission and then we'll pick right back up.
Hi guys, so I'm back. Apologies for the intermission. In addition to my other achievements that were mentioned earlier, I'm also a mom or a new mom, so we're figuring it out, especially through this pandemic. So I'm going to continue from where we stopped. We're talking about different sponsor types. So as I'm speaking about them, I want you to think in your journey, all the different people that you would say fit these descriptions. So I stopped at the caregiver. This is someone who nurtures you, provides us reassurance. So I have people in my life who, when things are just kind of funny, they just say, oh, hey, it'll be okay, just, be patient, or they just encourage, that's all they do. Then we have the devil's advocates. These are the ones that challenge you, to shift your perspective, to push the boundaries of your thoughts, and they provide a reality check. Those are the people that we don't often like, but we need them, we do need them, because there are people in my life that when they're talking to me, I get really upset. Like, how can you be saying this kind of thing? But I've done my best, I've done this. And they're telling me, but have you really done enough? Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I jumped a bit ahead. Yeah, they're asking me, oh, have you really done enough? Have you done all the things that you were meant to do? Do you really feel like you went all the way? And I'm like, look at this person. What else do you want me to do? Do you want me to die? Or do you want me, like, I've put in all my best? But you need them because these people push you to be the best that you can be. They don't allow you settle for the least that you are. They don't let you settle. So let's talk about the connectors. These are people who link you up with other people. They link your ideas and they give you opportunities. they help you navigate the system. So I remember when I first came to Nigeria, I met a lady who, she just seemed to know everyone. She just seemed to know what was going on. She knew how to, if I said, oh, I was looking for this, she'll say, oh, you know what? You need to meet this person. They'll be able to help you. So we all need a connector, the person who can listen to your idea and then connect you to someone who's going to solve that problem for you. Then the relentless coach, the one who pushes you to try harder, to take on more. You know, they provide tough love and they demand commitment. So I have a coach as well. So my coach is no nonsense. You know, I get like, he pushes me. Look, hey, by first quarter, I need you to do this. I need you to ensure that this is what your business is doing. And he doesn't take no for an answer or, oh, I think we may do it. So you need a coach. You do need someone who's relentless with you, someone who doesn't give up on you, who doesn't accept your mediocrity. Like, there are times when I say, oh, well, I don't know, you know, I think maybe the bare minimum we can do is this. You know, he'll take that and multiply by 2 and tell me, oh, I know you can do even more and you're going to do this. So just knowing that there's someone there who's expecting me to do more, it makes me do more. It really makes me do more. It makes me want to be better. Then the visionary. This person is someone who helps you dream boldly, who helps you see into the future and see through what your business could become, even beyond what you can see. So that's what the connector does. That's what the visionary does. So for me, I would give you an example in my business. When I started my brand, I started out as a frozen yogurt company. And that's all I was thinking of doing. But I had someone who says, you know, have you ever thought through your value chain and seen how you can add value through the value chain? And based on that, you know, I started thinking through that. And in the process of that, I was able to add on new products to my business, still within my value chain, still not be doing anything different than what I'd already done, you know. And then there's the hero, the one who just takes on significant personal risks to open doors for you and clear obstacles and fight for you. So I have people like that in my life as well. The ones who says, oh, hey, you need this, don't worry, we'll go there, we'll make sure that you get this job, or we'll make sure that you close this deal. You know, they just fight for you. They just make sure that you get everything that you're looking for, you know. And they do that at their own personal risk, which means sometimes if you're looking for a loan, they'll stand as a guarantor for you. If you're looking for a reference, they'll stand as a reference for you. Then the Godfather, this was the one who goes to the mat for you, but they demand extreme loyalty in return. So I'm sure we've all heard about Godfathers. I know that's a popular term in Nigeria. Just talking about, but that's also someone that you need in your life. Someone who goes to the mat for you, but this demands extreme loyalty. Some people choose to have them, some people choose not to. For some people, I would say they're beneficial. For others, maybe not so much, you know. Because when it comes to extreme loyalty, what exactly does that mean and to what extent? I think these are things that you need to think through as you're building relationships. So I want you to think about Sorry. I'm so sorry, my thing keeps going all over the place. So I just want us to have a little discussion just about, you know, which of the roles that I've spoken about do you identify with? And thinking through what 3 identified roles do you think are most important for you? And which roles do you think you currently need in your life? So maybe I can have some people come up, maybe 3 people who can come up and answer these questions.
Okay, do we have any volunteers that would like to come up and answer these questions? Yes, and Ahime, we have some comments for you here, just letting you know that everyone is saying that the background noise is part of the reason, a great example of the challenges. how we have to keep powering on as women.
Thank you guys. I appreciate your support.
Everyone is supported on here for sure. So if we have Olufemi Oyani has said that she needs a hero. We want people that can be added onto the panel. I'm not sure if Soma and Adora, are we doing that or are we just taking comments? Okay, so the questions
coming
are
up?
not yet. I'm not sure anyone is coming up. Just to read out the questions on here. So which of the roles do you identify with? Which 3 identifier roles do you think are the most important? Which roles do you think you need filled in your life currently? So I don't know, Amy, maybe you and I can do this exercise. So let me go.
Yeah, okay.
I'll be the scapegoat. Okay.
Oh, they
So
said we could add Chidima. It looks
Chidima,
like
thank you.
Chidima.
That's great. Let's
Awesome.
add Chidima. Okay. So we're waiting for Chidima to join. Okay. Hello, Chidima Maduka.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
Wow, this is a pleasant surprise.
Hello.
Okay, Adora, maybe I'm sorry, Ehime, maybe we can show the slides that have the different roles.
Yes, absolutely.
Just as a prompt. So Chidima, we're asking which role you identify with. That's the first question. And then Ehime, I'll just keep quiet now.
Thank you. I appreciate your support. So which roles do you identify with? Which 3 roles do you think are most important? And which roles do you think you need currently where you are? Mfreke, I hope I said that right. I'm really sorry. Sometimes I butcher people's names. She said, she says that the role she needs as fast as possible is that of a coach, so I can be more accountable. I think that's actually one of the most important sponsor types, having a coach, especially a coach that's in the sector of what you're doing. So when I realized that I wasn't achieving my goals as much as I wanted to, I actually approached someone who was in my industry but worked for a bigger conglomerate who had more experience than I did to be my coach. So it's not always about going after the superstars or the obvious people, because a lot of people are really busy, especially the ones who are superstars. So I chose someone who had a regular 9 to 5, but was a star in what they did. And what they did was crucial to, he had so much more experience in the business I was trying to do. You know, after I had a visionary tell me where I should keep my focus on, then I realized to achieve that vision, I needed a coach.
Okay.
Are we adding people onto the stage?
Yeah, we're waiting to add any. If we have more volunteers, we can add them on, so we can go ahead. Okay, hello, Marie. You can speak. I think we can hear you.
Marie, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, hi. Sorry. I didn't realize you were calling me. And I am Yuri.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Okay. So, to answer your question, or more like tribute to your question and what you asked for. I feel like I am more of, without looking at the slides, like I try to encourage my friends, like, or when I hear that there's an opportunity, I already see your potential based on my dealings with you, and I try to encourage you to do better and just go for it without thinking of the fear or letting the thought of not being able to accomplish it take over. So I see that as the king and the caregiver. And then also from my own line and from my own experience, if there's anybody that I see that can help you achieve what you have stated out to achieve, I would link you up with that. So that would come on as some form of a connector. Yeah. But also I found out that I am lacking in the area of a coach. Yes, because I'm in the construction industry and it's a male-dominated environment. So there are lots of men and very few women in that sector. But even at that, there's still some women that thrive in it. But unfortunately, I haven't been successful in getting a coach that would, hold my hands literally and just show me the ropes as to how she got where she is and how I can be better at what I'm doing at the moment. I mean, I have a story. I did try a few times, and the no that I got till today, I still have nightmares. I mean, she literally just told me, I'm sorry, but I don't have enough time. I'm just like, okay. In my head, I'm like, if you don't help the younger ones, how do you want us to progress and be as successful or, make our marks in the society? So yes, I feel like I do need a coach still, and I need a connector, because I see so many things I want to do, and I see the sectors that I can thrive in and the specific places that I can thrive in or take a leap. But I need strategic people there, which I do not have. And I feel like if I had a connector or a coach that has more experience, the person could easily guide me as to, okay, no, you know what? I know this person, you do this. Why don't you do this? It'll open the doors to this, this, and that. So yes, those are the two places I feel like, I'm not sure about a godfather, because I feel like if you have a good coach, that could suffice. So having a coach and a godfather might just be conflict of interest. So you'll be confused as to who to follow, who not to follow. That's just my own thought. But yeah, I feel like I need a coach and a visionary, and a coach and a connector. That's for me. That's my own contribution.
Yes. Hi, Enayamire. Thank you for coming on stage. And thank you for saying that, because I'm glad that we have this example. So remember when I was saying earlier, sometimes about the coach, that a lot of people are really busy. So that lady that you went to meet, she's really busy. So she may not be able to take time out to coach you on a daily basis because she has so much going on, So don't take it no personal. What I would say is, I'm sure there are bigger companies that are doing this, and don't focus on it being a man or a woman. I think you need to focus more on just it being someone who has experience. So it doesn't have to be the CEO of the company. Maybe look into your network and see who's been at a construction company or a building company who has years of experience. Because trust me, a lot of people that probably work for her even have more of the day-to-day experience than she does.
Okay.
So you need someone. So for me, for example, let me use myself as an example. I needed someone who understood consumer packaged goods and understood FMCGs and distribution. I can go to the CEO of Nestle, but I'm sure he's really busy. So instead, I went to someone who's like the head of FMCG at Nestle, but he's not the CEO, he's not the COO, he's not someone that has his attention really split on so many fronts. So he became my coach. Because he's a regular 9-to-5er. His weekends are free, some evenings are free. So it didn't matter to me that maybe, he was just a regular worker. But I've gotten so much value from that relationship because he does know his stuff. So maybe look a bit closer into your network and see who's just like a regular worker, but has so much more experience, because they're the ones on the boots on the day-to-day, and they know how things are done, how things are implemented. And even opening of those doors, they also know, the right people that you need to be in touch with for any deals or things that are going on. You know,
Okay,
there's some
absolutely.
aspects in my business where if you probably ask me, I kind of know things, but on a surface level, if that makes sense. But if you
Yeah.
probably asked my operations manager, she'd be able to give you like all the details.
Okay.
You know, so
Okay. Can I say something? Sorry, I'm taking up a bit
This
of
is
time.
Dr.
So
Mwadinobi here. I had asked to make an input, please.
yes,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Thank you very much indeed. It's really great to be here. And, you know, this is what the Women's Leadership Institute is all about. And, you know, I just feel so privileged to be on the board of advisors. You know, COVID-19 has really brought out the best of humanity. And, you know, Ehime, I greatly admire you. I admire your, you know, perseverance, your resilience. And it's absolutely okay to have baby in the background because that's the reality of our virtual world. And, you know, I guess we have the COVID-19 pandemic to thank for that. Um, Thank you for your presentation. I just want to give a few examples of myself. Since becoming the international president of the Medical Women's Association and presiding over female doctors in over 90 countries, I found it very lonely up here. Exactly as you've said, you know, it's one-sided. People want all the time. And, you know, one tends to look for those who can also bring something to the table. And, you know, one is looking for a mutually beneficial relationship, but you find yourself on your own and people just want to take and drain you. So, you know, thank you for bringing those realities to the fore. I had had a huge heroine in my life, and I guess, you know, we all do in our mothers and women who have been our heroines in taking risks for us and seeing the future even when we don't see it in ourselves. But for me, I see myself pretty much as a connector. You know, I make a deliberate and purposeful effort to connect people when I'm in a setting. And I'll give an example. We just had our Near Eastern Africa Congress, and I bumped into a colleague doctor who I hadn't seen in years. And we had a little chat on one side of the room, and I went to the other side of the room, had a chat with somebody else, and I said, well, I think you should come and meet this lady. Well, fancy. By the time I brought them together, they were sort of struggling to recognize one another because they had masks on, only to discover that they were cousins, but hadn't seen themselves in a long time. So, you know, what are the chances of that? You know, in a room of about 150 to 200 people socially distanced. So, you know, we need to be able to make these deliberate efforts, see how we can get people to network. And then I've also had in my life sages who've, you know, offered me incredible wisdom. And the funny thing about sages is sometimes you think of them as much older. Well, I can tell you that I have found sages who are even younger than myself, who, you know, despite that proverb that says what an older person can see lying down, a younger person needs to climb up a tall tree to see. But, you know, the wisdom of our young people now, possibly helped by social media. So I just wanted to, you know, chip in those few points. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Everything you said is absolutely so valid. Is there anyone else who wanted to just answer the question? Okay, I think we've kind of, with Yamira's example, I think we've kind of just answered a lot of the questions. Just really, the whole idea of this is to make you aware that networking is not a random thing, it's a strategic thing, and to give you tools to be able to approach it from a strategic way. So these are, if when you start to identify all these people, and the truth is, you don't have to have all these people in your life. You can have 3, you can have 4. It's always a situation specific, business specific, company specific, because at different companies, different cultures, and this applies to entrepreneurs. It also applies to workers as well, because within your organization, you need sponsors to get ahead. When I worked for Citigroup, you need to understand different kind of sponsors within your group, people within your team, people outside of your team. I know a guy I worked with at JP Morgan. His boss will say all day that this guy does no work. He's always gone from his desk. But guess what he was doing? He was networking. At the end of the day, when it was time for promotions, guess who was the first person promoted? He was. Because he would go network, he would stay at his desk, send emails to all the VPs, ask them to meet for coffee. So it was so powerful that when you bring names before the VPs who are going to promote you, they already knew his name. In an organization like that, where they have thousands and thousands of people, how do you stand out? How do you get someone who's going to say your name in the rooms where it matters? So you need to start thinking about your sponsors and your network and how you intend to build that. You need to ensure that you have the right kind of people in your corner to achieve the objective. So when people say to me like, oh, I've not gotten promoted, I ask them, but what are you doing? How are you building out your network? Who's speaking for you in those meetings where it matters? Because to promote one staff, there's at least 20 people in the running for that job. So if no one is saying that, hey, but this guy, at least 3 people must be saying that this particular person or this girl, I know her, this woman, this is the person. The only way they can do that is when you also invest in building that relationship with them. So let's start to think about that in a really, really strategic way. So let's start talking about building your network map. So your network map is actually really, really important. And you need to start thinking about how you build that out. So if you can look at this drawing that I have here, you see where it says me? That's you. There are different types of arrows, and on the side, the arrows are explained. So the triangles are the people around you. If you have a closer relationship with that person, you move the triangle closer to you. And then the people that you trust. With trust, you have a thicker line. So when it comes to people that you trust, draw the line thicker or thinner based on the trust relationship. Start to draw those lines. Then reciprocity. What relationships are there like a two-way street? If it's a two-way street, let it be an arrow that shows, I give to them and they give back to me. And then for energy boosting relationships, put a plus. So it means that every time I'm with this person, I just get a boost of energy. They ginger me. Every time I leave this person's presence, I'm just ready to go. I'm ready to build. I'm ready for action. For energy draining relationships, put a minus. It tells you every time you meet with this person, you're like, oh my God. Or every time the person calls, you're just like, oh, what does this person want this time? You need to think about all those things. And if it's a neutral relationship, put an equal, so you don't gain anything, but you don't lose anything with that person as well. So look at the map, because I'm going to need you to draw your own. You need to draw out your map so you can start being strategic about how you use the people in your life and how you network with them. So are you guys ready to draw a map?
It's 10 o'clock.
And please, if you have questions about the map, please put them in the chat so I can clarify as well. So right now we're going to go on a map drawing session, and we'll allow a few people just come up to share their maps and explain. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat and I would respond.
Hi, Ahime. I think we had one question that we can just talk through while people are building their maps. If you wanted to ask, how do you network when you're alone in your niche, when you're the only one in your niche?
You still, sometimes it's not even just about your niche. Sometimes there may be niches that are similar to yours. And also, it doesn't always have to be someone in your field. So the person I was speaking about earlier that has become a great mentor to me is in the fashion industry. I'm in the food industry. I've learned a lot of things from her based on how she deals with vendors. I learned so much from her based on that because I also have vendors. We don't have the same type of vendors. She has fashion vendors, but I have food vendors. But I applied the principles of how she managed her fashion vendors to my food vendors. So before I would have all these vendors and I was paying out a lot of money. Just you supply me something, I pay you immediately, draining my cash flows. But I noticed that with her vendors, she would request a 30-day turnaround time to pay or a 60-day turnaround time based on relationships that she had built. So I started taking that approach to ensure that my cash flows, and this was earlier in my journey, to ensure that my cash flows were better and were strong enough to hold up the business. Because without that, we couldn't grow. So think about people, and sometimes what I've also realized is a lot of times the answer that you're looking for will not come from someone in your industry. It will come from someone in another industry who does things differently. Because they do things differently, taking an approach that is used in a different industry sometimes will work wonders when applied to your industry. Does anyone have questions about building the maps? And are we building the maps? If you are building the maps, please say yes or type in yes, so I know that you guys are with me. Thank you. I'll go for the yes. So we're just going to take 5 more minutes on map building, and then we'll bring a few people to review, and then we'll round out the session. So it doesn't have to be a complete map because I see the message, but just draw a basic map with as many people as you can. It shouldn't be, it's just so that I can explain and I can help you think through it as well when we have a few examples for other people to see. So I was going to speak on, I see someone made a comment about networking being in some professions, especially male-dominated one, is difficult. I don't agree because I think, you need to remove the sex of the person from the equation and look at them as a non-gender person. Your focus should be, what do you need this person for in your journey? And having a clear conversation with them about that. Like I said, maybe some relationships may be a bit difficult to get started, but why don't you start by saying, how can I add value to this person? Trust me, there's no one in the world that if you're adding value to their life is going to be dismissive of you or not take you seriously. So I say to people that when I first meet someone, before I ask anyone for anything, try to do at least 5 things for that person. Think through it, especially people that I relate with on a more professional level. Think of how you can send them opportunities. Think of how you can do things for them. How can you be of service? If you start thinking that way, you'll be surprised at how networking becomes a lot easier for you. Okay, do we have any volunteers who would just like to share their screen? Maybe one person, because we're kind of cutting it close on time, and we would like to round up. Is there anyone? Oh, I see a question as well. Why do you have the green, yellow, and red lines scribbled? So I think the energy boosting relationships are the yellow line. Energy draining relationships are the red lines. And then for neutral relationships are the green lines. So the blue dots are they identify a sponsor. So you see a hero, navigator, or sage. Do we have anyone who wants to quickly go through review theirs, because we're running short on time? So I'm just gonna go through this quickly because I think we're running low on time. You know, these are just things that you need to reflect on. As you look at your network map, are there imbalances in the composition of your network map? Think through that. What patterns do I see related to reciprocity? How many of your relationships have reciprocity, trust, and energy? Look at how many of them. And when I look at the sponsors around me, what do I notice? Do I show up for anyone as a sponsor? Am I showing up as well for anyone as a sponsor? These are good ways to look at it. Does that make sense? Okay. Hi, oh God, thank you for coming up.
Hi.
Hi.
Unfortunately, I can't share my map. I've scribbled this on a piece of paper, and yeah, I really can't show it at the moment.
Can you talk us through it?
Yes. So in terms of the thoughts that you just shared on looking at balances, energy flows, and the kind of people you have in your map, I noticed straight away that I have a lot of sages. I don't have a godfather, and I don't have as much of the others. I have a lot of sages. I have a couple of caregivers. I have a couple of connectors. I have one devil's advocate. I'd probably like to have more. So this is really helpful because it gives me an idea of the kind of networking that I need to build more of. And in terms of the energy flows, yes, I can see that there is quite a lot of trust between the people that I have drawn the maps for. I can see that the relationships are mostly mutual, so that's good as well. But there are some that are quite draining, energy draining as well. So this is very helpful. It's a very good exercise.
Thank you. I was going to ask a question. Do you notice that how many relationships you feel are further away? that are not as close to you?
I think maybe if I had more time, I would put in more of the further away ones. I actually the people that came to my mind immediately were the people that are closer. So pretty much almost everyone here is close. I have maybe just one or two people that are not. Yeah, but if I had more time, I would think a bit more wider. Yeah.
You said that a lot of your relationships are neutral, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I think that relationships should be more energy boosting. So can you think through ways that you can make those relationships more beneficial for you? That makes sense. And more energy boosting. And then for the energy draining relationships, what boundaries do you intend to set on in terms of those relationships?
Good question. Thank you.
So
I actually said mutual rather than neutral. I was looking at mutual in terms of reciprocity. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's great. That's amazing. That means you have a really balanced map. But I think think about the energy draining relationships and how you intend to set boundaries with those. It's so important in our lives to think about boundaries with people. It doesn't mean not being in their lives, but setting boundaries with them.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I see that you said someone else. Okay, I guess we can move on to finish out the course. So you draw your map and think through like some of the questions I've said, where the imbalances are, where you need to build more trust, where you need to build more energy. And I think energy actually is also part of what you are also giving. A lot of people, we have these relationships where we don't always reach out. Think about how you can reach out with people more. Go on LinkedIn, see how you can build more connections with people that are in your space, or people that you need to connect with, and reach out to people. And it doesn't always have to be an ask. It's just a check-in. And one thing I've told people is that this pandemic is the best time for networking, because you have a reason. You can, just send people messages and say, hi, I thought about you and I was wondering how you were doing through the pandemic. I hope, your family has been well. I hope business has been well. I hope work has been okay. How are you doing generally? Sometimes it's just about a care check-in, just a quick check-in, and you start to build a relationship from there. No ask, no requirements, just oh, hey, I was wondering how you're faring. One thing I did at the beginning of the pandemic, in fact, 2 weeks into the pandemic, I reached out to all my clients, all my friends, just sending out messages, just saying, hey, I thought about you and I was wondering about your family. There's been so much bad news and there's been so much bad happening lately, people passing away, but I wanted to make sure you and your family were okay, And a lot of people were really excited about that, because there was no ask, there was nothing, just to check in. Think through those things, and sometimes you can build even very substantial relationships from doing those things, And so the instructions, if we're going to have a breakout session, was to describe the actions that you intend to take related to your network, and then think about how you show up on other people's maps as well. That's really important. We have an idea of how we see ourselves, but the real reality is, how do other people see us? How do other people see us? How do other people see you? How do you show up on their map? And what implications does how you show up on their map have for your next step in your business or in your career? And then I want you to think about one action you're going to take next week that is going to help make your networking map better. So these are the commitments, describing the actions you need to take. If you can just write down some of these things and walk through it. Sorry. So which relationships do you need to reinforce more? Who do you need to bring closer to you? Who do you need to distance yourself from? How do you rebalance your reciprocity profile? And what is missing in your network? Where's your network out of balance? These are the things I want you to think through and make a commitment on how you choose to work through them. So I'm going to talk about very quickly, so I can round up, just about fear of networking, fear of reaching out to people sometimes and just saying, hey, I need help, or I need this. I'm just about to play a video, if you give me a second. just to help you think through the fear of networking. Okay, so I see a question from Adora about cultural norms influences sponsorship of women. Sorry, 1 second. I'm going to play this video. This is just to deal with fear, because I also know that a lot of things that hinders people from networking is the fear of it. So this video is just to talk about the basics of networking, and how easy networking is. And then I'll come back and answer that question.
Fear and networking are sometimes associated with each other. Why is this not easier? Why is the connection so hard? Why are others so natural at it? These are all fair questions, and I'm here to tell you the hardest part of networking is getting over the fear. Like skiing down a steep mountain, you must embrace the start and just go. Effective networking is connected by 3 things, and you can do all of them. First, your energy. Connecting to others is about the energy you exude toward them. People are drawn to energy, your smile, your handshake, your tone of voice, and your likability. It's very basic. Consider how you introduce yourself. Practice it. Confidence is key. Second, a starting point. Common interest is often overlooked in laying a foundation for networking possibilities. Why are we both in this setting? What might our common interests be? What's the common reason we're here? It's all about a starting point, a kickstart to begin a conversation. Finally, your ability to pivot or move to the next subject is important. The energy's there. You have a common conversation point because you've listened to what the person has just said. The next subject is important to maintaining a conversation flow. Think about where you want the conversation to go. Make it easy for them to speak. Consider basic subjects such as career. You can ask something like, what do you do for work? Or other areas might include leisure time, or education, or politics, or even the weather. The goal is to open the networking box. Networking is truly a word broken into 2 pieces. Part 1 is the word net. What does a net in effect do? It catches all things. What about the word working? It suggests an action-oriented approach to getting something done. Tie the 2 together and it becomes clear. We all want a mutual benefit in having a conversation. So fear not.
So that's it for the session today. Sorry, I'm just gonna pull up I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. So I'm going to answer the question that Adora says, how do you feel cultural norms influence sponsorship of women in the workplace? I think it's really difficult, to be honest. I think cultures at workplaces are so important. A lot of people have cultures that they're not even aware of. But I think that as a person, you need to be able to see. Nothing in life is ever easy, right? Nothing is ever straightforward. And you need to be able to decide how you choose to show up. You know, it's okay that there are certain cultures or certain things that happen in the workplace and it doesn't necessarily work for you. But how can you make that situation work for yourself, or how can you influence the culture? Because culture is about the people that are there, and you also can influence the culture of that organization. You know, you can influence how you show up by starting different cultures. So when I first joined City, they didn't have a culture of volunteering. My team would not volunteer for anything. We had the poorest score on volunteering. So I took it upon myself to ensure that I would go to everybody's desk and say, hey, I need you to come in 10 a.m. or 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Saturday morning because we're volunteering for junior achievement. We're doing this. By the time I left, my team had the best networking score and sociability score, that we won awards for what we were doing in the community. So it's how you show up. It's always on one person who takes the lead to say, I want to change how the culture in this organization is. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Ahime. I believe that question was actually by Ekwemi. She's on the call, and thank you for that insight. It was really, really great. I think maybe I would like to just add that in the context of culture, I'm also thinking about in the Nigerian context, in our socio-cultural, the socio-cultural things that affect us, religion, ethnicity. It's a bit tricky for women. Somebody had already asked about networking in a male-dominated where I work. And it's sometimes you have to be careful the way you come across. When you're networking you have to network with something at the back of your mind. For example, if my sponsor is a northern man, I have to be careful how I approach him so that I am not seen as in a certain way. If, for example, I'm a northern woman and I am looking for sponsorship or mentorship, because of my culture and maybe my religion, I also want to present myself in a certain way. There's barriers to that as well. Having after work meetings with male colleagues or senior colleagues can be viewed in a certain way. If, for example, you're a married woman. So these are some of the barriers that women face, I believe, attempting to find a sponsor or network. And truth be told, I think there's a lot of work that has to be done around understanding and learning clear, polite communication, sharing knowledge. Maybe employers need to think about more diversity training and understanding cultural differences. These are some of the fears that I have faced, for example, working and networking with people. So it's a little bit tricky. And I think that maybe, maybe one or two people could lend their voices to that as well, if time permits, their own experiences of
I was going to
networking.
say that even with that, and I'm so sorry. I was going to
Go
say
ahead.
that even with that, in my experience, moving to Nigeria and not even really understanding the culture, I have in fact had to work with a lot of people and similar male people, like you mentioned, even people from the north. I think that we don't give people enough credit for realizing that they also are human and they really interact, like the video said, with your energy. So I think that when you go into a situation with a lot of these things already on your mind and with preconceived notions, sometimes you set the tone for how that relationship or transaction is going to be. One of the things I try to do is go into every relationship or every situation with a blank slate mind, with no expectations, no preconceived notions, irrespective of what people have told me to expect. Of course, I would protect myself. For example, the situation you mentioned about meeting a male colleague after hours alone. So maybe invite someone else, maybe invite another female colleague or someone else that you feel comfortable, or meet them in a public setting where there's more people involved. I feel like there are little ways that you can address these things. And I think that sometimes what I find in Nigeria is that a lot of people have actions based on preconceived notions that they already have from other people. And one of the things I tried to do in my journey was not do that. And I found that it really, really did work for me, because a lot of people are willing to make exceptions to say, okay, well, this is how she is, or this is how, things work. I think that they do understand that. And as long as you're not disrespecting anybody, you're being respectful of him and his time and making it clear. If you have to have a meeting with a male colleague, certainly bring someone else along if you do not feel comfortable enough to do that, and before you even approach someone and say, oh, hey, I want to be your coach, you need to set agendas. You need to set the tone of what that relationship is going to be so that everybody's expectation is well taken care of. You need to ensure that everyone's expectations are funny things. A lot of times you're going into a coaching relationship or a mentorship relationship, you have expectations, they have expectations, but a lot of times our expectations are assumed and unspoken. And I do agree with you, a lot more work needs to be done, especially in Nigerian organizations and businesses, on diversity training and making the workplace safer for women so that they can have more coaches, and more programs need to be held. and maybe WLI would take this on to actually get companies to commit to doing more training and providing more coaches for women.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you very much. And great tips as well.
I'm done with my session, so I'm not sure who has the next session.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Ehime. Thank you. I think we got kind of lost in the discussion, and we just wanted it to keep going on. But thank you so much for everything that you shared with us in your session. With everything that you're juggling, you've been able to have a very informative session. Thank you also for all the homework that you've given to the group. This will definitely allow our participants. Oh, and hey, there we go. That's our special guest that's been with us the whole time. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I think with everything that you've shared, people will really be able to apply what you've taught today practically in their lives, which is really the whole point of this session. Thank you so much. Hello. Okay, and she's still crying, so let's leave her. Thank you, Ahime. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for having.
Thank you. Okay, so before we start our next session, we'll just take a minute to digest everything that we've learned from Ehime. Thank you so much. You can keep all your messages coming and she'll definitely read them as well. Before we move on to the next session, it will be only right for us to hear from our founder, our chairperson, Ambassador Dr. Kema Chikwe is with us. She's been with us throughout from the start. So I would like to invite her up to say a few words to us before we head into our next session.
Am I unmuted? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, but you need to mute one of the devices.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Or you can hear me now? When Hodan and Professor Akusid made their presentations, I really, have been quite excited about the progress of this course. As a matter of fact, WLI is positions. And we've done a lot of work. Yesterday, I spoke about that. And we're continuing this particular course. Yes, we offer this course. We said free, but it was actually sponsored. And this is because our sponsors believe that we are offering what Africa and Nigeria need for women to actually get into action and take over authority. As a matter of fact, the women in Nigeria, especially where I live, have worked very hard. They have done so much. They have clamored for recognition. And at WLI, we reviewed the progress made so far. And we believe that there should be some new dimensions. And the new dimension we're introducing now is adaptive leadership. We intend to propagate the ideology of adaptive leadership. Because from the lectures given so far, you can see that there's a slight tilt, a positive tilt. And it's very, very important. Here at WLI, we offer certificates in courses because we hold master classes. But I said yesterday that WLI is not just about intellectual scholarship, but also about practical life. And we are hoping that this particular course will motivate more women to adapt to their situations and their leadership skills and leadership styles. I am very enthused that so many women are registering for these courses. This particular course, we're going to offer again at WLI. And I hope there'll be continuity. I hope that the ladies who have attended this course, it's only 2 days. We always have this crash program at the Institute, but we want this adapted leadership to sink, to take root. I think it's what Nigeria needs. And you can see that's what women really need because their situations are different. You can see the diversity. We find ourselves in different situations with our babies, with our families, with our managerial positions, with being principals of schools, or being an Okonjo-Iweala. I mean, there's so many things women find themselves in, but the important thing is that we want to excel. And this adaptive leadership, we hope, will begin to make a change. I'll leave you with this short saying by Rupert Murdoch, who said that the world is changing very fast. Big will not beat small anymore. It will be the fast beating the slow. And that's why we don't want women to be slow. We want women to catch up fast, to adapt fast, to be where we have worked hard for, to find ourselves. We have worked very hard as women. And I thank all the men that have given their support to women this morning as I was preparing for this course to start, I went to see my doctor. You know what he told me? He said, Auntie, I'm very proud of what WLI is doing. Let me confess to you, I believe that women, especially in Nigeria, should take over positions of leadership and positions of authority. And this was a man speaking. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And I hope you'll continue to partner with the Women Leadership Institute. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you so much for those words that you shared with us. Thank you for inspiring us. First of all, thank you for the vision of the Women's Leadership Institute, because it's because of that vision that we're here, and many of us are committed to taking that vision forward and continuing to support the Institute. So please, like everything our founder just said, engage with the Institute. We do offer certificates and master classes that you can become certified in different areas. So please have a look on the website. It's womenli.org. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Thank you. So we're switching gears now, moving quickly onto our next course. The next course that we have is titled Leadership Framework for Female Leaders. Our trainer is T. Wazo. She's a senior human resources expert with over 20 years experience. T has worked in the capacity of an executive leadership and career coach, empowering individuals and teams to identify their competitive advantage, hone in their skills and talents, and apply them in ways that consistently deliver results and drive impact. Basically, T helps you discover what's special about you and how to turn your skills to gold. This is exactly what she's going to be doing in this session, which is why this session is particularly interesting, because apart from giving you general frameworks, she's going to put you at the center of everything that she's teaching and all her strategies, so that you're empowered within your own context to apply all her teachings and make them practical so that you can see results. So get ready, get a pen and paper ready, pay attention, because we have yet another session that is going to be really impactful. So if I can invite T. Wazo, she's on here already. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So to kick this off, let me start by greeting everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know that this is a global event, and so I want to make sure that no matter where you are tuning in from, we keep the warm welcome going, the motivation going, the energy going. Wura, thank you so much for such an amazing introduction to this session. I don't know that I could have done a better job myself, but it is what we're going to be doing is exactly as Wura described. I also want to thank Adora, who gave the welcome remark, because I believe she really set the tone for the second day of this session. And as far as I'm concerned, the level of energy and information is certainly meeting the standard of the first day, that we kicked off with the first day. And Hima, thank you for your session. What I especially loved about that session was it wasn't just the tangible frameworks and tools that you shared about building a support network in our circle, but I think oftentimes when we do these leadership strategies, it's important for us to see how it works in the real world, and what better way to show it, to show us how to demonstrate leadership in navigating our personal and work circumstances. But above all, I do want to also appreciate and thank Ambassador Dr. Kema Chikwe for the gift of WLI, and really for the call to action that that preceded this session. She had said something similar yesterday, but to hear it again really gets me personally excited and inspired, recognizing the amount of work we still have left to do, but also still feeling energized to be able to do the work. I believe that the Institute is positioned as an organization that's constantly proactive, constantly forward thinking in terms of giving us the tools, such as what we've captured today, to be able to navigate the very real challenges that, you know, we've talked about, Adora shared and introduced. But for the purpose of what we're going to be doing, I'm also going to be reintroducing those challenges in this session, so that what we end up doing is we end up saying to ourselves, okay, so there are all these challenges and there are all these opportunities, and I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm somewhere at the center with the expectation that I should be doing something. And so if you think about the you know, the different strategies that we've picked up today, and yesterday we've been exposed to a series of amazing leadership strategies. And I'm sure that each and every single one of you is thinking, well, I could either adopt or apply one of them, or I could apply all of them, right? So if you decide to focus on strengthening your support circle, as Ahime shared, or if you decide to focus on creating change in your community using Hudan's adaptive leadership framework from yesterday, or even applying volunteerism, right, as a function of entrepreneurship in terms of your leadership style, the question I have for you is, well, how would you go about doing it, right? So if you looked at all the frameworks as okay, what are the tools I need? What are the frameworks I need? You've been given those tools, you've been given those frameworks, you've been given those steps, but you still have to do it. And I believe that the answer to how you do it lies in understanding who you are as a leader and what you bring to the table. So if you think about it, even if you followed each of the steps and principles that were shared here today, and someone else did the exact same thing, the levels of success might be a little bit different. And I believe that those that are able to achieve greater success in whatever it is you decide to do are those that have a better understanding of what their leadership brand is, what their value is. And essentially, if you are and when you are invited to the table, understanding what value you bring to the table, right? So we're sort of talking about all these ways to somehow find ourselves at the table. But when you're given that invitation, we want to make sure we maximize it. And the way we do that is to understand and be able to own our brand as leaders. So similar to Hudan, I'll be applying a broader definition of leadership beyond, you know, that it being a position of authority, to make the point that none of this work is anything that you need to wait for, right? It's something you can start to do now to exert your position of leadership. And it all starts by unlocking what I like to refer to as your power potential or your leadership potential. So without further ado, I think what I'm going to do now is share my screen so that we can go ahead and get this started. And, you know, as I do this, the one thing I wanted to point out about the session is that for sure we will try to make it as interactive as possible, because as they say, leadership is very much an action word. So we're going to be doing a lot of action and hopefully a lot of conversation and a lot of really reflecting and identifying and recognizing, right? So that pen and paper that they've been talking to you about since yesterday, for sure, prepare to use it at some point during this conversation. All right, so like I typically like to do, I like to start off each of my courses with some sort of mental map of how we will be flowing throughout the session so that you're able to make the necessary connections. So as you can see here, we're going to be starting off by, you know, establishing and clarifying what leadership is. I already hinted that this term leadership transcends positions of authority and speaks to who we already are right here and right now. So, and we'll talk about how it does. I also think it's important to elaborate on what we mean by the changing world, as I explained, right? So Adora shared some things that are going on right now that it is very important for us to recognize, and recognizing how we want to take advantage, how we want to leverage the changes and see what could be viewed as threats, see them as opportunities, seize the opportunities, and place ourselves there, right? So the goal is to acknowledge that the world is changing, nurture the understanding of how it's changing, and then of course create a sense of urgency, you know, of all that is happening around us so that we could be moved to action. And of course, lastly, we will then transition to, you know, the practical leadership framework we talked about, that's essentially centered on strengths-based leadership. We'll conclude that with a little exercise, a little SWOT analysis exercise You know, and then I'll share a few recommended resources that would be good, interesting follow-ups. So here, as I explained, it's important for us to level set a little bit. What is this thing called leadership? What is the premise? How are we establishing the case for leadership? And I thought a great place to start would be, you know, a simple definition about what leadership is. But I think more so, it's important for us to understand what leadership does. And there are so many definitions out there, and I'm sure that we each subscribe to our own individual understanding of what leadership is. But the one I whenever I ask the question, what is leadership? The one that comes up quite often is, of course, a leader is someone with followers, right? And so no matter how we feel about that phrase, you know, some people feel like it's overused, it's trite, what does it mean anyway? No matter how we feel about that sentence, the reality is even that very simple sentence has some truth to it, right? Because if you think about it, in our homes, in our communities, in our support networks, businesses, whatever the case may be, even that simple definition, we find ourselves playing the role of leaders in some capacity because someone is listening, someone is following what it is that we're doing and saying. But nevertheless, in the spirit of trying to find a very inspiring statement to level set this conversation, I instead discovered a series of statements from a business website called Investopedia. And I liked these statements for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons I wanted to share this instead of the one inspirational statement I was thinking of is because these statements, if you notice, qualify specific types of leadership, right? Which implies that there are inherent roles and expectations that people have of us as leaders. But the definitions not only talk about what leadership is, like I said, it talks about what it does, which makes it a lot easier for us to own our roles as leaders, right? Because again, it is an action word. It's beyond who we are, it's also what we do. And it's important to understand that. So if you look at these statements, there are 4 of them. What I wanted to do was maybe give you a few seconds just to read them out loud, maybe to yourselves, assuming there's no one around you, but even if there are people around you, read those statements, reflect on them, right? Because what I want to propose after you read the statements is, if I was to read each of these statements as a question, but instead of if I was to read each of these statements as a question, right? Requiring a yes or no answer, what would your answers be? So here, let me read a couple of statements, and maybe just the first one. Effective leadership includes exhibiting a strong character. What does that mean? It means leaders exhibit honesty, integrity, trustworthiness, and ethics. All right. So let's transform that into a quiz. And here I have a series of questions that I'd like to ask to determine if indeed you are a leader. So the first question here is, do you exhibit honesty, integrity, trustworthiness, and ethics? Now, is that answer yes or no? So again, these are questions it's between you and yourself. Do you use effective communication skills to move forward and achieve new levels of success? The third question, do you anticipate what lies ahead, consider the possibilities, and then plan the steps needed to get there? Are you supportive and truly concerned about the well-being of others? Now, as you read these questions and as you answer them, try to think about the informal and formal roles that you play in your homes as wives, mothers, daughters. Try to reflect on the roles you play in your sister circles and associations. You know, when we think about who we are as business owners, as managers, as company executives, as public servants, do these statements resonate with you, right? That is the question. So these are simple questions we're reflecting on. We're not sort of contextualizing them within our communities, whatever the case may be. Chances are that you answered yes to most likely all the questions, right? And if you did, congratulations. I hereby certify that you are indeed a leader, right? Now, I emphasize this point because I think it's important to reinforce the idea that leadership is not solely a function of moving from the bottom to the top, but it's also a matter of recognizing that we are already leaders, like even in this moment. And so it's a matter of really starting from the inside to unlock our leadership or power potential and bring that out. And this would apply to any and every single person, even for people that have existed in positions of authority for a long time. Because I reckon that in as much as you have achieved whatever accomplishment and achievement that you've amassed, there's still a ways to go. There's still gaps that exist. There's still spaces to occupy. And so it's important that we're somehow digging deeper, right? To figure out what that superpower is, to understand what that superpower is, because to the extent that we can name it, claim it, and aim it, it would make us that much more effective in whatever it is that we are that we seek to work on. The other sort of emphasis that I want to make is based on an observation that I often see with women, the women I've come across. So I feel like the women I've come across tend to operate differently in two spheres. So it's as if they're like two different domains, right? In the private sphere, at home, among friends, we're one way, and then in the public sphere, when it's the workplace and in our community, we're a different way, right? And so sometimes when we see or hear the types of things that women are able to accomplish in their personal lives, oftentimes their stories demonstrate the most amazing achievements and resilience, right? And we often go, wow, like when we hear personal stories, we're able to see just the sheer essence and power that we have as women. But just generally speaking, within the workplace, we don't necessarily experience as many wow factors. Now we could talk about how there are barriers that exist, whether institutional, whether systemic. But sometimes I tell people the workplace stuff is nothing compared to the very real challenges that women experience in their personal lives and in their spheres, and they're able to rise to that challenge each and every single time, right? And so what I try to have people recognize is that, it's people believe that it works differently, right? Like it's somehow, well, home is different, family's different. I know these people. Work is different. The culture is different. And that's true. The contexts are different. And it's important to recognize the context. It's important to recognize the environment. But the one constant is you, the individual. The one thing that's not changing is you. However, your approach changes depending on the context. So if you ever find yourself just challenged with a very specific issue in the workplace, in business, try to reflect on a similar experience in your personal life, in your work life, where you have amassed or achieved something wonderful. Try to figure out what those attributes were that were at play, and figure out how you can apply it in the workplace. So for example, and of course, I do want to point out the balance actually works both ways, right? Because sometimes you may come across the most experienced, the most just amazing people in the workplace who've been senior executives for years. And then in the home, it's pure chaos, right? And somehow, again, because we tend to separate our work life from our home life, and this is men and women, and especially the chaos example I just gave, we somehow think it's two different people. So I remember in my experience, I'm a mom of 3 girls, and as mothers of daughters, sometimes, our daughters try to test their leadership potential and then establish their dominance, right? At least my girls do. I think it might be a genetic thing. And I remember just telling my 10-year-old daughter one day, when she wasn't 10, she was 10 at the time, she's now 14, because she has a very strong personality. And I remember just being exhausted. And I was like, I'm a senior executive at a world-renowned organization, and men and women respect me. And so my expectation is that you will respect me. Like and of course she looked at me with this very puzzled look, like, what? But I knew just then that I had established a level of understanding with her, and that was a turning point in our relationship. So that's a light example, but I think it's worth us understanding the point, which is that, you know, we're the same person at home and at work, and it's a matter of merging the two, and, you know, cultivating the best of who we are in all those circumstances. So a few other examples, you know, that I've come across and I try to share with people. But the bottom line being, the way you achieve success in one space is your key to achieving success in another. Is that if you're especially good at balancing budgets at home, for example, you may have everything it takes to be a recognized expert in the field of finance and accounting. If you successfully directed, delegated, supervised all the planning for your 200-person wedding or your daughter's wedding, well, then you can probably plan a multinational conference for 50 world leaders, right? And then a final example, if you're the friend, this is something that's very relatable. If you're the type of friend that everyone comes to seek your advice and counsel, then you are an influencer. The world needs you. Feel empowered to exert or unleash your superpower onto the world, you know, and so obviously, you know, with the examples, what we discuss, what we go through, all the things we talk about, the idea would be to place yourself holistically in the paradigm of leadership, right? Recognizing that however way you accomplish that one really difficult thing in that one sphere in your life is probably the secret to navigating whatever your current challenges are. And sometimes the challenge is just balancing between both worlds. That said, as if my point was not enough, this is a simple word cloud, as it were, of just the different qualities you associate with leadership. So again, I reckon just looking at this slide, you can probably point out to 6 things that you can identify with, things that you can associate with and you recognize, and you know, and if that's the case, it's because you, as I've said, you already have what it takes to position yourself accordingly, and it's just a matter of identifying what it is purposefully, and then developing and refining your qualities, and then choosing to apply it to whatever specific leadership area that you're looking at, whatever that goal is. You know, is that goal to start a business? Is that goal to grow a business? Or is the goal smaller? Are you just simply looking to strengthen your network map, right? Are you simply looking to generate more sages within your network? So big, small, large, you have what it takes to get it done. It's just a matter of figuring out the how. All right, so coming back to, you know, the global environment, the changing world, as it were. Adora pointed to quite a few things here, but, you know, for the purpose of emphasis, I think I'll go through some of them again, maybe with additional information, if you will. All right, so with the decade of action, this really just speaks to the sustainable development goals that Adora was talking about, right? So on a very macro level, about 5 years ago, countries around the world got together and committed to, you know, eradicating poverty through the implementation of 17 sustainable development goals. And in 2020, so 5 years into that 15-year commitment, there was a reassessment, sort of a check and balance of, you know, how people, a scorecard of how different countries had been doing. And I would say that the results were then mixed, right, for lack of a better term. So now with 10 years left on the timeline, the countries have now recommitted their efforts to basically do better at achieving these goals, hence the term decade of action. Now, I can't speak to the degree of success of any one country, but what the recommitment conversation did, I think, is that it brought the conversations about the need for inclusive development back on the radar. So as long as women or any one group continues to be marginalized, the results will always be mixed. And it always fascinates me how, for whatever reason, we either haven't figured it out or we still struggle with this, right? Because if women make up half of the world, the world's population, and we're looking to create strategies for development, right? But we're neglecting literally half of the world's population, then at best, whatever strategy we create will be 50% successful. Now, I don't know, I'd like to assume that as students, we all did our relative best, right? So if you got a 50 out of 100, which is 50% on a test when you were in school, I don't know that you would celebrate. I think I can't see your facial expressions, but I would assume that is unacceptable, right? At the end of the day, the goal is excellence. But we cannot achieve excellence if, again, we're only focusing on a proportion of the world's population in an attempt to fix the solutions that affect 100% of the world's solution. And so that's the idea. And so the themes of inclusive development began coming up again with countries and companies and organizations started thinking about, okay, so what do we need to do? How do we need to do it, right? And so as I just quickly go through the rest of the context and trends, on the one hand, we can see them as threats, we can see them as gaps, we can see them as barriers, but then on the other hand, they translate to opportunities. So again, in thinking about what it is, how we want to position ourselves within the context of change, where are these opportunities on the macro level, on the sort of high level, and then on the more immediate level in terms of our communities, in terms of our companies, in terms of our workplaces, even in terms of our personal lives. So the other thing I want to point out is the global pandemic, which we're still very much living. And as Adora, sorry, I'm going to keep calling Adora because this was basically I don't even need to go through this because she already did. But, women were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, right? And so what you find is that organizations, communities, the economy, as they try to look for ways to build back, again, in that context, in the spirit of, well, you can't neglect half of the world's population, there's a need to contend with the fact that, women were lagging and development was lagging for women. And so whatever was terrible prior to the pandemic was only compounded by the pandemic, right? And so you're finding that there's more attention being paid to these types of things. And so in that same vein, to tackle these ongoing issues differently, you find that folks are now more open to the idea of, maybe we need to do something different. Maybe we need different perspectives because what we've been doing in the past clearly has not been working. And so folks are looking to then diversify perspectives, specifically include the female perspective, right? Which leads me to my next trend, the increasing number of female first, what we refer to as female first. So the first woman to do a thing, right? And I just want to highlight a couple. So the one most recent and probably most celebrated in this group was the appointment of Dr. Okonjo-Iweala as the first female chief of the World Trade Organization. So that was huge because she was also the first African in that position. Also huge was the United States, having its first female vice president, and then really recently, Tanzania having its first female president. So there have been these waves of female firsts that have been happening, increasingly happen. Sometimes they happen, they announce a first female too, and you're like, and it would be for the most basic things, which is a constant reminder that even though we're moving the needle, there's still so much work to do. And it's important for us to understand and recognize these opportunities. Finally, well, not finally, there are two more. The changing workplace. Again, Adora had spoken specifically about trends that are happening in the Nigerian workspace. And I think just globally, in the workplace, folks are looking to establish what we deem best practices. The idea of work-life integration is very, very real. Being able to be successful in all areas of our lives and not having to compartmentalize is what is happening. So that when we see kids in the background and when there are things we need to leave work early to do something for our family, it's not this shock. You're not met with disdain and condemnation. More people are understanding it now. Are there people lagging? Absolutely. But I think for the most part, that's the direction in which we're moving in. The other sort of trend I wanted to highlight is, the fact that more women are joining more male-dominated fields. I believe someone earlier had shared that she was in the construction field. Still, not as still considered a male-dominated field, and there will be those. But the reality is that gap is closing quite a bit. And so, no, I take it back. It's not closing, but we are slowly but surely, moving in. We're slowly but surely moving in. There was a couple of mentions about the need for more diversity training. That is not a trend. I think globally, that's certainly a trend that's picking up, and there's an opportunity to certainly do more diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings. So that was good. And then finally, something I want to talk about, the concept of the feminization of leadership. Why I find this very interesting is that, having been in the sort of the workspace and the work sphere for over 20 years, and in leadership positions in the corporate sector, there was this sense that to be a leader, you had to do things like that were associated typically with men. And so folks would say that, there'd be these training classes that would teach women how to lead like men, quote unquote, right? So being more rigid and being more like, what's the word? I had words listed, but it's essentially being inflexible, following the chain of command, being transactional and process driven. But the way the world is going, the reality is it's very people centric. There's a recognition that that transformational leadership is what the world needs. There's a recognition that emotional intelligence, being purposeful and committed, being committed to fairness, being challenging yet accommodating and helpful is what the world needs. And so there's this sort of relatively novel concept of feminized leadership, because it sort of speaks to the attributes, natural attributes we have as women leaders. So to the point about, so imagine if you had changed who you were and given up all that and, had sort of adopted this whole thing of rigidity and things that the world once valued. And then all of a sudden it's like, we're evolving into this new era and this realm of leadership. So now you're having to adjust back. So it's very important, if that isn't a strong enough case to cultivate authentic leadership and find out how you show up as leaders, I would say the fact that the term now is the feminization of leadership, I'm sure should be assuring. All right, so then now we have here the case for leadership. I think if I haven't made this case yet, I don't know how much more to make the case, but as I've said, the reason folks and more companies and more organizations and more institutions should be looking to include more women leaders and have actually started looking to include more women leaders is a couple of reasons. So one, there's the aspect of inclusive leadership, right? In the sense that you kind of need to engage all stakeholders. And as again, a group, a demographic that comprises literally half of the world's population, you can't be successful doing something that's designed to address global issues, and then you're sort of marginalizing a specific group, right? But also the notion of this feminized or traditional women attributes that we bring to the workplace, I think is also a case to be made, right? So the emotional intelligence, the cultural gains, the attention to social development, because the way we show up, there's this yes, I'm speaking generalizing, but the way women tend to show up, there's this concern that transcends beyond self, this sort of community-centric type of thinking and type of concern. And so what we find is that we also have gains in social development. On the part of economic growth, in terms of data, a few reports say that in addition to productivity and work gains, we could also increase our GDP or economic growth by an average of 35%. Again, just by having an inclusive economy, okay? All right, so barriers to women's leadership. I'll again quickly run through these. Structural and systemic barriers we already talked about, right? Whether it's access to resources, capital, political capital, social capital, financial capital, the way the system is set up, there's such a lag for us as women. And so we find ourselves, having to rise to the challenge of meeting these gaps. Ahima's whole session was about how do you build your social capital in spite of these barriers, right? So that's what we find ourselves consistently doing. Institutional and organizational bias, we talked about this a little bit. When we talked about the social cultural norms that may get in the way, that was an example of, in our attempt to build our network, right? The unconscious bias that come into play, the assumptions that folks make, in terms of the way women show up, right? How careful we have to be about what people say when we're going to meet people of the opposite gender, the assumptions folks make, when they see a woman with a child, a mother, right? And so we find ourselves having to consistently battle these biases. With the institutional organizational bias, we find ourselves, as Ahima said, just being being intentional about communicating what it is we want and what it is we need and what it is we're looking for. And I think in some ways that the world is allowing us to do more of that. Lifestyle choices, there's the whole, for years we've had to do caregiver, breadwinner, and sort of wrestle with that. And depending on what choice it is we made, that sort of influenced our ability to climb up the ladder at a faster rate. And we're still having to navigate that. But the biggest thing I think for us and for the purpose of this session is our individual mindset, right? Sometimes it is just that. Sometimes we are the barriers to women leadership, and notwithstanding the bigger ones and the larger ones. But I think what we want to focus on is how do we navigate through that individual mindset piece. So this leads me to the leadership framework that I was talking about and why you're essentially listening to this session. So here, what I have here are just different ways we lead, right? So on the top left corner, leading others, again, going back to a leader is a person with followers. A leader leads people. And so in that top left corner, we talk about how it's important to communicate vision, coach, guide, inspire, and drive collaboration. Top right corner, leading the organization. Again, so this allows you to sort of place and center yourself in wherever you are in your leadership journey. It talks about how you engender systems thinking. It talks about how you create value and drive results, how you set strategy for a path forward. And then the two down below speak to leading the community, leading change. And then right here in the center, right, regardless of where you are in your leadership journey or what your leadership calling or purpose is, I've placed leading self. And what that essentially speaks to is no matter where you are, it's important that it's grounded in your self-leadership. It's important that it's grounded in certain in your understanding of how you show up as leaders. And so what I'd like to do is ground this sort of strengths-based leadership philosophy in what we call, so I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach. And so the philosophy is very much based on Gallup. But even though yesterday, Professor Atkinson shared the 16 personalities assessment, no matter what assessment tool it is you take, it's the same idea. The idea is understanding how you show up and having that be easily accessible for you to be able to use and apply. So the principles then of strengths-based leadership are as follows. You are enough. You don't have to become a different person. The second statement here is you don't have to be all things to all people, right? Because you are enough. And to the extent that you even know who you are and how adequate you are, you'll find that it eliminates this need and this desire to rise to everything, right? You'd understand, you find that you all of a sudden have clarity on not only your purpose, but how you are designed to carry out and execute your purpose. The third statement here is you can't be anything you want to be, but you can be more of who you are. That's a very important statement for me because it's important that as we pursue our leadership development, that we're not necessarily looking to do, you know, I don't know how many of you read the Year of Saying Yes or the Year of Yes, something like that. But the affirmation books and the leadership books that we read, they are great and they're important and they're very much critical to your development. But you have to understand and you have to sort of account for the fact that that's someone else's perspective. So even as you read these things, it's always grounded in who you are. So if you're going to be saying yes, you have to make sure you're grounding it in who you are. You have to know that you're not saying yes beyond your capacity. You're not saying yes beyond how you show up, right? And so it's important to just understand that you could do all things, but you're doing it within the capacity and within your brand. You're sort of staying within this sort of very, very strong understanding of how you show up as a leader and what you bring to the table. And then finally, in learning how to be more of who you are, you could become a better version of yourself. And isn't that ultimately what all of this is about? Again, I'm going to cite Adora, who had said that, you know, when you stop learning, you stop living, I believe it was. And we want to live and do more, right? And so at the end of the day, I can assure you there's always an opportunity to become a better version of yourself. The world isn't static. The world is changing. And as the world is changing, who you are and how you are situated in the world should be changing along with the world, right? Okay, so that's these are the how is it that my screen is not moving? Sorry, okay. So these are the affirmations. This is, I believe, the sort of the talking part of my presentation has come to an end, and this is where I turn the mic over to you all, because we're going to be putting all the things that I've said into practice, right? The first activity here allows you to define who you are. Now, typically, when we do this in a full-on coaching session, you answer a 45-minute questionnaire, and the questionnaire does all the work for you, and the questionnaire sort of churns your profile, and it gives you all the really nice buzzwords for you to fill out. But we don't have the time to do that here. But we are able to maybe take a little glimpse around and see what this would look like. So this activity here helps you essentially establish a leadership mindset and unlock your leadership potential, no matter where you are in your journey to the top. And this is how, right? So these are simple key phrases that allow you to just think on, in your natural state, how do you show up as a leader, right? And so the way you'd approach this is you'd reflect on each of these phases before completing them. You try to think about a specific example of a time when you displayed some of these qualities. So I'm a leader who does, or who, the value I bring is, the role I play is, I am motivated by, and the needs I have are. Simple questions, and you don't have to answer all of them. The one thing I want to point out is you all answer this, because I believe we'll be calling at least one person to share their screen or share their what they've done. So sometimes, because I'm sort of immersed in Gallup Strengths, that's the name of the leadership framework. Sometimes when people talk and when I hear them talk, I can't help but hear them talk in strengths, whether they know it or not, or whether they recognize it or not. It just naturally comes out. So I was listening in on yesterday's session, and I hope they don't mind me sharing it. I don't even know if they're on here today, but two people, they were answering a question about adaptive leadership and how they would apply it in their lives. And as they were talking, I was wowed. I mean, what they were saying was great, but what I was wowed by was their leadership strengths and how it was coming out. So the first person is Iffy, right? And sorry if you don't mind me sharing your story, but so she's a trained lawyer, an excellent lawyer, right? And I believe when she was moving to back to Nigeria, she was moving to care for her sister. She's now her sister's primary caregiver, and in the process of doing that, she recognized that there was a larger gap in that area, of siblings who are primary caregivers of their other siblings. And in turn, that transformed into her setting up a nonprofit and leading it and sort of being an advocate in that area. And I remember going, okay, that is profound, right? And to her, it was probably just, I had to do it. Like, if I didn't do it, that was a natural thing. That, of course, even the way she told the story, it was like, I have to take care of my sister. There was a gap. I had to meet the gap. And I imagine that even as a lawyer, those things show up. I imagine that even as a lawyer, and I don't know what type of law she practices, but I imagine that level of advocacy probably shows up to the point where, of course, you show up uniquely because, again, not knowing the type of law you practice, I'm sure it's rare that you advocate so much on your client's behalf, right? But to me, I didn't hear, I'm a leader who does law. I heard, I'm a leader who cares. I'm a leader who advocates. And I thought that was profound. A second person that I wanted to share, because I thought this was just so profound, and then I'll open it up, was the second person who shared in that one session, Emma. And she had described this, incident of urgency and trauma in her family. And she immediately, the story was she had immediately just decided found herself in a sort of immersed in this leadership position where she just rose to it. And again, when she was talking about it, she was like, I didn't have a choice. But the reality is she probably did have a choice. The reality is not everyone would have done what she did in the way she did it. So what I heard in that story, even though that was not the point of her story, was someone who is decisive, someone who, if she's sitting in the workspace and there is a need that's not being met, she'll again rise to that need. So I'm sharing these examples because I'm saying that is the way you're showing up, but you may not necessarily notice it. I'm saying that there's an opportunity to do even more than what you are doing right now. So that said, let's go ahead and share. I don't know if anyone's ready to maybe share their. Do we have any would-be panelists? If we don't, that's completely fine, because I think I shared enough examples from yesterday. Okay, that is fine, but certainly do this on your own. So we want to do this in the interest of time. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to move on, but this is very much a sort of a personal exercise for you as well that is important for you all to take notes and pay attention to. So here we have the strengths-based SWOT analysis. The idea of a SWOT was introduced yesterday in Professor Atkinson's entrepreneurship lessons. And the context of this was, I believe, just assessing your business in the business environment. Well, guess what? You can certainly apply a SWOT analysis to your leadership development, right? So if you think about who you are now as a leader, right? Because I'm assuming that you did the exercise that we just did. You don't have to share it, but you sort of have to do it on your own. So assuming you do that, right, and you've identified your strengths, you've identified your skills, abilities, resources, assets to be maximized. So in addition to who you are and the values you bring in your leadership brand, the other strengths you want to identify would be your skills, abilities, resources, and assets. The other thing you want to identify would be your weaknesses, right? So given where it is you're going, given what it is you're looking to do, are you seeking a promotion? Are you seeking to start a new business? Are you seeking to get a godfather or godmother? I don't know if that's a gendered term, but a godparent for the context of your network map. Whatever it is you're looking to do, a coach, someone was actually looking for a coach, so a very specific and tangible example. What gaps might you need to address in your skills and confidence? Opportunities, what current trends, new growth and development areas are there to pursue? We've talked about a lot of the macro sort of big level, big picture trends that we've identified. And then finally, threats. What potential obstacles do you need to recognize to overcome? Having done that, we go through the simple strengths framework where, again, like I said, You're looking at what you do better than most. You're looking at the unique skills, abilities, and resources that are available to you. And then we're looking at how you would maximize them. So what I want to do is actually run through each of the prompts and then bring it back to the page where we're able to kind of see the SWOT. And then if there's anyone that wants to share their responses to any one of these, we certainly can. Okay. So with the weaknesses prompts, you'd be asking yourself, well, which areas do you lack confidence? And then not confidence or maybe skills, right? But sometimes they're interchangeable. Sometimes you lack confidence in an area that you don't have skills in, right? So it's a matter of just being honest in that moment and figuring out how to bridge the gap. So I give examples such as financial management, public speaking, people management, but it could also be, okay, well, maybe I just need to get over the fear of social networking or just networking, sorry. And then finally, once you address them, you identify the one or the two that you want to address and how you want to address them, either by taking a webinar, training, getting a mentor even, if you will. Opportunities prompts, this is where you talk about or you think about, well, what are the trends in your industry or profession that you could take advantage of? Which of your networks can you leverage to collaborate or partner? Again, I mentioned new growth and development opportunities. So once you put everything on the table, you don't have to do all of these things at once, but the idea is to be intentional. The idea is to target, right? So this is where you are, this is where you want to go. And then you figure out, based on your strengths, you figure out how you want to use your strengths to get to where you're going. Considering the following, considering your weaknesses, considering opportunities, and of course, considering threats, which include obstacles that may get in your way. Is your job more demanding? Is your job not fulfilling enough? Are you experiencing difficulties with your supervisor? Social cultural norms, breaking that down into tangible, what exactly is in your way, and figuring out how you would work on addressing each thing one at a time. Okay, so these are the 4 sort of questions. These were also shared. If you registered, assuming you all registered. And so you have this accessible because again, it's a very reflective exercise. So it does, it's very beneficial if you take the time to actually go through it. I don't know if we have time for maybe one person sharing any of the prompts or their responses to it, or any questions in general. Oh, I see. Oh, this is so good. Okay, let me read the one that I see here. I'm a leader who decides in situations. I mostly provide solutions in most cases. I mentor and encourage. That beautifully done, Techno Spark. That was good. Okay. Okay, I want to maybe read, see if I can. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, anyone else?
Techno is a panelist now, so you can speak with her.
Oh, is she? Okay.
Techno Spark, can you hear us? She's muted, or he's muted. Techno Spark, you're muted, and we need to know your real name.
Even though I like Techno Spark, it causes me to think.
We may have to get another volunteer because I don't think Techno Spark can hear us.
Okay, that's fair.
Let me get the next volunteer. One second.
Mm-hmm. Or we could take any questions that you might have about this framework, how it can be applied in real life situations, how you may have even applied it in your real life situation.
You can put your hands up if you would like to have the conversation with T. Okay. So we have Olushola Olaniyi that was interacting with you in the comments. So I will upgrade. Okay. Olushola, can you hear us? Okay, you unmute yourself. Okay,
Hello.
perfect.
Hello. Good
Yes,
afternoon.
hi. Good afternoon.
I can hear you. Hello?
Okay, so go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I can hear you.
Okay, so I was wondering, so first of all, thank you for joining this conversation. And so I was wondering what your experiences have been, you know, well, either what your experiences have been or any of the responses to the questions, like how you may have defined leadership, or maybe did you identify any strengths, any weaknesses, any opportunities or threats?
Olushola, you're muted. We can't hear you. I think there are network issues, so we'll move. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. So let me just use the opportunity to talk about, I want to answer Ifeyinwa's question, which is I always want to find out what motivates my staff. That way it's easy to assign new roles. Okay, it wasn't a question. But I want to affirm that is absolutely the way to go, and just recognize, again, in the spirit of recognizing that people show up differently, honoring that difference and taking the time to understand how each of your employees show up differently, and then, you know, aligning their strengths to the new roles that you want to assign. Okay, and then Adora raises an amazing issue, challenge that we often find ourselves in as women, as in some cases, minorities within a particular sphere. The question about imposter syndrome, right? Where you find yourself in a position of leadership with great expectations, and you're like, how? How did I get here? And how you overcome that. And that is all too common an issue. And quite frankly, I have found that when you've had those moments, being able to ground yourself in your leadership, like going through the exercise of saying, no, not just an affirmation, right? So the affirmation, it affirms something, it affirms a reality. So when you go through what I guess we're terming affirmations, being able to connect those affirmations to real things that have happened in the past, real experiences, real accomplishments, real things that folks have seen and affirmed, and you've seen your impact because it's manifested in so many real ways. And then letting that be the real affirmation. But yes, the imposter syndrome is so real, and I want to acknowledge that. But I think that's where this tool can really make the difference. And again, recognizing, because your brand is your brand. If you think about how we associate with brands, they're never changing, right? There's an expectation we have of a luxury brand. There's an expectation that we have of a, you know, even the term off-brand, right? It means you're not meeting this expectation. So it's important for us to know what our brand is, and to know that no matter what is changing in the world, no matter what position we find ourselves, this is what we bring to the table. Let me go back to Techno Sparks. Okay, let's see here. I'm a leader who decides in situations. And I assure you that this being TechnoSpark's brand, and the assurance in which this person wrote this, you can't take it away, right? This person is always going to be a leader who decides in situations. And so if the person found him or herself, and I'm sorry, I don't know, TechnoSpark, how to address you, but ever found themselves in a situation where they are not sure, they don't think they deserve the leadership opportunity, they can always remember that they are a leader who decides in situations, and look for those opportunities to reinforce the brand. Okay, so that's how it's supposed to work. The imposter syndrome, as I explained, is just this this feeling of just do I belong? Do I, if you think about an imposter, someone who is sort of pretending or faking it, right? So sometimes as leaders, especially as women, and especially as people who have been told in so many different ways that we're not good enough, somehow we feel that we're not good enough, and it seeps into our psyche, right? And so the idea here is to understand that you are good enough, and have these affirming, not just statements, but these affirming experiences that you've had, that do remind you that you are good enough. Okay. Let me just read some of the comments. Sorry. The imposter feeling was so strong. Okay, sorry. Maybe I shouldn't read the comments. But there's a lot of sharing going on in the comment section. Thank you all for engaging in this way. But it is real. I really appreciate your vulnerability in just sharing the impact that the imposter syndrome has had. But I think it's important for us to connect and validate our experiences. Like no one can take away your experiences. No one can take away, when you accomplish a thing, you accomplish a thing, right? No one can take away what it is you've already done. And of course, there's a larger issue of if you're in a space that's toxic. I mean, that's you do what you can to leave the space if that's if you're not getting the level of appreciation. But I think on a general level, know that you are enough, and that's essentially what I want to leave you all with as sort of my final thoughts then. Okay, assuming that was my final thought, but I'm leaving the slide up for us to just take it all in until Wura decides to transition me out.
Hi. Thank you so much, T. I was actually lost in the comment section. There's a lot going on. So I was reading some comments and experiences that people are sharing. Thank you so much. T, you've taken us through a wonderful session. Thank you for the homework. Thank you for making everyone think about who they are, how they show up, what they have inside of them that makes them unique, and how to continue to grow and build on leadership skills and abilities using what you already have innately inside of you and only making it better. So it's important to always take stock of yourself, which is why I really love the SWOT exercise. And I would encourage everyone to use the tools that T has shared with us today and just see how you can help improve and continue to build on what we already have inside of us. Thank you so much, T. That was a fantastic session. Thank you. So everyone is still on here with us. Thank you, guys. We have only 45 minutes of time left. So our learning continues. We have one more quick session. I'm just going to do a quick browse through the comments so I don't miss any important instructions. Okay. Fantastic. T, the thank yous are all in here. This is thank you, T, thank you, T, thank you, T. Thank you so much. That was amazing. And we'll power right through to the next session. So our final session for today is going to be one topic that kind of hinges everything together that we're learning about. We're talking with Ambassador God knows Igali. He's going to be talking to us about gender mainstreaming. So as a bit of a background, Ambassador God knows Igali is a Nigerian career diplomat, administrator, and an intellectual. The next person we're inviting is really coming with a wealth of experience in different areas. I mean, Professor Igali holds a PhD in politics and international studies, which he got in the University of Venezuela in 1988. He also has a BA in history, a master's in international law and diplomacy. He was the secretary to Bielsa State Government in 2005. He worked in the Obasanjo administration on projects around peace in the Niger Delta. And then he became a federal permanent secretary between 2010 and 2015. He also served as Nigeria's ambassador to Scandinavia in 2008 and consul general to Cameroon in 1999. So you can just imagine someone of that wealth of experience from public policy, diplomacy, international studies and history coming to share a few words with us this afternoon. So we're truly honored to have Ambassador God knows Igali with us today. Please give him a warm welcome, and we will pass it over to him to hear from him for the next 45 minutes. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. The floor is now yours.
Thank you very much. Let me begin by appreciating all those that have spoken before me. It's been wonderful sessions. I've sat in and listened attentively and learned so much. Particularly T, she said so many things. My notepad is full of jottings. And although I'm not a lady, I think a lot of what she presented also pertains to men. Having said that, I would like to appreciate the organizers for the thoughtfulness of bringing this up. We're still in the euphoria and in the celebration of International Women's Day on the 8th of March. So this is quite timely. And I think the discussion on proper position of women in leadership is apt at this time. I always give the example of the Scandinavia, where I was privileged to have been ambassador, particularly in the country of Finland. And as you know, right now, the Finnish cabinet is made up of women, predominantly Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Minister of Education, Minister of Interior, and Minister of Environment. Most of them women below 35. So it's a great inspiration to all of us in the rest of the world. Can I be able to share my slide? Hello? Hello? Am I talking to myself?
Hello? No, sorry about that. You wanted to share your slides?
So that I can run through it quite briefly, yes.
Yes, sir, you can share your screen.
Okay, can I share my screen? Okay, I'll do that quickly. So just give me a minute, let me get that in order. Sorry, I was dealing with something with technology. Can you see my screen now? Hello?
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to, like you rightly said, the benefit of speaking last is that you're able to cap up what everybody has done. So you're able to touch a little bit here and there. And with the kind of thing that we've done and what we've heard for the past 2 days, I'd like to share on focused leadership, focused engagement as a tool for engendering gender mainstreaming. Talking about adaptive leadership, I think that adaptive leadership itself, the main focus, particularly as it pertains to women, is to ensure that women are properly mainstreamed. And if we talk about adaptive leadership, simply it's a management tool that is practical. It is amenable to change. It's amenable to change. It's practical and able to adapt to change. It's not static. It is not in any way boxed into a particular pigeonhole, but is able to change. And as it pertains to issues pertaining to women, the approach is such that it can change. It is adaptive. And although the issues that pertain to women and pertain to society in general are long-term and sometimes could be complex in dealing with, but with the adaptive leadership, as complex as they are, we're able to adapt to change. We're able to look at the long-term prospects and be able to change. And so to deal with gender issues, the whole idea is to be able to be amenable to applying tools that can change. Yes, of course, we often hear the cliche that the only permanent thing or the only thing that changes constantly is change itself. So with adaptive leadership, we're able to address the complex long-term challenges and recurring organizational problems. Now, let's apply to society. And I want all participants in this class to listen. In society, we deal daily with complex problems. Problems of social nature, problems of institutional nature. But we must have a mindset of applying tools that can change whatever situation that we deal with. And that is the whole concept of applying adaptive leadership to society and particularly to issues that pertain to gender. And as we get to the nitty-gritty of talking about pragmatic engagement, we'll come back to some of these issues that I've mentioned. And we have to develop and adopt new attitudes, new values and new norms to overcome these societal problems. Yes, in a class that is predominantly women, you will understand when I say that the issues that pertain to society, particularly as it pertains to women, are legion. There are very many. But we must have a new mindset. We must have new norms, new ways of overcoming them. We must have that positive attitude that no matter how the problems are, we can overcome them. They can be overcome. And when we go into the historical part of this particular class, you will see that those before us have adopted such positive mindset, a mindset that has tended to develop that attitude of we can bring about change. We can bring about change. So when we talk about gender as it pertains to adaptive leadership, as it pertains to the gender, is to ensure that the stereotypes of the past can be put behind us by we developing a mindset that ensures that women are not excluded from the practical aspects of society, from leadership, from the economic activities of society, from the social activities of society. So to understand the stereotypes of female gender exclusion is to ensure that these kind of exclusions are no longer tenable. We have to, with a new mindset of adaptive leadership, we have to make society know that any societal maybe traditions or societal norms that tend to exclude women are no longer acceptable. This cannot be by a sit-down attitude. These have to be by active, pragmatic engagement. The pragmatism there denotes that we have to adapt it in a way that we are not seen as being in a state of war, but it has to be pragmatic enough to be able to deliver the results that we need. Now, on the part of the women, and I would like to use the term we the women, because I'm talking mostly to women, and you will excuse me for that. On the part of the women, we must adopt an attitude that is not non-withdrawal. In many parts of the world, there is an attitude of women feeling that withdrawal syndrome, where you feel that, well, we cannot change society. Society is what it is. So let us adopt an attitude of either begging or trying to, at different times, make society to pity the status of women. But like I said, as we'll see later in this presentation, in this class, you see that the women that have come much before us have not adopted that kind of attitude. They adopted the attitude of engaging the systems, engaging the dominant forces in the society in a very pragmatic way to get the results of ensuring that women were placed in the mainstream so they were not excluded from the activities of society. We have to be creative in that respect. Creativity is critical. Creativity in terms of the kind of new ideas, the kind of new norms we bring on board to the table. Creativity in terms of the strategies that are adopted to ensure that gender inclusiveness is part of society. Now, let us know, and I want us all to understand in this class, that the structures that have tended to exclude women are structures that have existed sometimes for centuries, for hundreds of years, maybe for thousands of years, where society has formatted itself in a mode that accepts patriarchy. Patriarchy in the sense that things have to be done as male want it, as male see it, and in favor of the male gender. So we have to be creative with the kind of strategies that we use to ensure that there is proper inclusiveness of women. Now, the next item is for us to slide that I'd like to share is the idea of keeping our eyes on the ball. We must be focused. We must be focused. And I must say this, that I have personally done some studies on, particularly this year, last year on International Women's Day, I did a study on Ngozi Iweala, as if I knew that she would become the Director General of World Trade Organization. And I said the celebration of African womanhood and Ngozi as the veritable celebration, which she was gladly surprised, and later she became a candidate and won. This year I called it Matriarchs, Womenfold, and the Building of the African Nation, and the role of matriarchs and womenfold. And I realized that the women that have been there before us, despite the institutions, the institutional obstacles that they went through, were focused on the ball. Their eyes were on the ball. What was of interest to them was to ensure that they stood there as lighthouses, they stood there as pathfinders for society to accept that women have a voice, women have a role to play, women have a contribution to make. So for us to ensure that there's proper gender mainstreaming, our eyes must be on the ball, like those that have been there before us, and not to be distracted, but to keep our eyes on the ball. Let me give a few examples. For example, as we know, the right for women to vote for many, many years remained an anathema. It was considered that women could not vote, just like other strata of society, like, for example, slaves and people of several backgrounds and so on, in many nations that were not allowed to vote. Women were not allowed to vote. Even in the United States, it was only with the 19th Amendment, 1920, that women started to vote. From 1776. So we can see how long it took that right to be entrenched. And for many other countries, it took a longer time. But the women that advocated for this were strident. They remained focused. They kept their eyes on the focus. That right for women to vote was given to women. Some other women focused on women participation in politics in their nations. The Nigerian example is very clear, and the African example, many African countries. And even with the recent, the example that T gave with the situation with America, where Kamala Harris has become the first vice president. And effectively, it means the second most powerful woman in the world. She remained focused in politics. Hillary Clinton remained focused and tried to be, she became presidential candidate of a major political party and even won the popular vote in that election. So they remained focused on ensuring that women belonged, and in different nations all over the world. So our eyes must be focused on ensuring that we are able to attain that goal. And that is what brought results in all these countries. Let us look at, for example, the situation with labor. Not only in the United States, but in most countries, women were not allowed to do certain jobs. even when they have the qualifications, when they have the capacities. And in many of these countries, even when they were employed, they were paid less than their male counterparts. I mean, what a travesty. But this went on for centuries, went on for hundreds of years. And we remember that in 1872, Bevler and Lockwood went to court in the US and got a judgment, but that judgment was limited to the federal government of America, that those employed in the federal government, women and men, should earn the same wage. Nothing happened in the rest of the labor market until 1963, when the Congress passed that act for women and men to be paid the same thing. And in the case of Nigeria, for example, women could not be employed as fighter pilots since the Air Force of Nigeria started, until recently, when women started to be, young ladies started to be employed into the Air Force, and they did marvelously better than the men. The same thing with the educational sector. In the 1920s, women between 19 and 20 in the school system could be counted. But as of today, over 56% of university enrollment in higher education institutions are women. And most of those graduating with first-class honors degrees, with master's honors with degrees, PhDs, are women. So these situations have only come about as a result of remaining focused in what is being pursued and what is being followed up. The point I'm making here, we've heard a lot in the past 2 days. But for us to get to that point where women are well appreciated as co-managers of our Commonwealth, as co-managers of what we can all do, is by remaining focused, remaining trident, remaining with the eyes on the ball on what we are pursuing towards equal participation, towards mainstreaming. Some of our countries, we made a lot of progress, but there are many other parts of the world where women are still considered as second fiddle. And it will take all of us to pursue these objectives. Look at, for example, the Parliament of Rwanda. We have almost 50-50 parity. Same with Finland. And we have women presidents in several countries today. But there are many countries where that cannot be spoken about. There are countries in the world where women could not drive cars. Until recently, they could not drive cars. They could not be able to be pilots of aircrafts. So our common work must be focused and must be targeted at achieving specific goals. Now, have we made some progress? Yes, of course. Even in our own times, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Prime Minister of Ireland, are all women. And if you come to the African country, it's just a few days ago, Tanzania now have a female Prime Minister. Ethiopia, Liberia, you know the story of Ellen Shirley Johnson, who was the first female elected president. She brought the country war to an end and became the first elected female president of that country and ruled the country for 8 years. And we've had similar situations in Africa with Burundi, with Madagascar, and so on. So the way forward is for women groups not to lose hope, not to lose hope. I know there's still a long way to go because the first problem is women themselves. That's a point perhaps I should have made at the beginning. We've had that kind of study in Nigeria. When women come out to contest elections with men, there is an unfortunate mentality of the women, other women, believing that these women will not win. These women do not have the strength to fight with the men, which is true, the kind of things men do, or that these women do not have the resources to be able to attain electoral victory. So even the women groups end up voting for the male. We have had an interesting situation in Nigeria where a particular woman, and I'm sure Ambassador Kema Chikwe will know because she's our friend, contested several times to be president of Nigeria. And on the last time she contested with several men, she had, I think, about 4 votes. And she shook her head and said, no, our women have a long way to go. So we have to educate our women to know that it's a collective work we all have to do. And we have to, if we don't do it, nobody will do it for us. But the critical point here is the fact that we have to all work together and ensure that these are achieved. Now, let me come to the other part of this this lecture. And permit me that I will focus on African women. It's been part of my historiographical studies. In Africa, perhaps more than any other continent, and this should be an encouragement to any African woman that is in this class. African women have never been found in the back room when it comes to leadership, when it comes to other aspects of society. From the most ancient times, as you know, for those who have followed a bit of African history, there were female pharaohs, and there were very powerful female queens, Queen Alexandra, Queen Nefertiti, Queen Cleopatra, women that controlled empires. The Egyptian empire was equivalent of what the United States is today. We remember the story of the Queen of Sheba, who later became the Queen of Egypt, of Ethiopia, and became the mother of the dynasty that lasted until recently in Ethiopia, which covered actually much of Sheba, covered much of Africa. It was not only limited, much of the Horn of Africa. So it was a big empire. And we had that example. But then if you come down to tropical Africa, there were even more daring examples of women against very stiff traditional barriers. They did not call pity parties and say, oh, these men are not giving us an opportunity, let us stay here until they decide. No, they challenged the system. They were able to create impact. We remember the story that is often told of the Queen Amina of Zaria, who became the most celebrated ruler from the northwest of Nigeria. She conquered empires and built an empire. She brought the Hausa, what is called the Hausa people, together as a people. She gave them identity. What about Queen Idia of Benin, who ensured that her son became the Oba Eseje? He became the greatest king of the Benin people have had. She made sure that he ruled, and stayed. She was at least alive for some time to ensure that her son ruled. Even the mother of Shaka, the so-called Shaka the Zulu, was a great African mother who ensured that her son became one of the greatest African rulers ever in the history of Africa. And we hear the word Amazon, 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 the Amazons of Dahomey. These were women warriors that resisted the British, and so many others. The concept of the Queen Mother was an African concept, where the mother of the king was regarded as the most powerful person in the empire, and she ensured that her son ruled successfully. So these were women that played major roles in building the African nations. And even when colonial rule came, most of the resistance to colonial rule were by women. We have it on good historical authority. So it is not a situation where African women have always sat down and cried. In fact, the most daring example is what maybe there are some Yoruba people here, or those who have studied Yoruba history, the story of Moremi. Moremi was the wife of the founder of Yoruba people, and there were people who were coming to kill them. Oduduwa, she was Oduduwa's wife, and she took it upon herself to go to the enemy camp and presented her life under difficult circumstances and ensure that when the enemies came back, she defeated them and saved the Yoruba nation. That's why we have the Yorubas today as a people. So we have had so many cases. This is not a class of history, so I cannot go on with history and history and history. What I'm trying to say is that these women have always been focused on what they wanted. Moremi went to the enemy camp saying, I will save my people and I will make sure that it goes on historical record that a woman saved the Yorubas from extinction. And we can go on and on with all of this. I recommend, with all humility, you may Google one of my article, which is entitled Matriarchs, Womenfold, and the Building of the African Nation, which is an article that came out on the International Women's Day and is still trending both in publications, academic publications, and social media. Now, if we take all this to the question of adaptive leadership, what it shows is that these women who were able to play these roles and bring women forward, whether European women, American women, or the African woman, to where they are today, were focused in engaging the male folk, in engaging the institutions of society, in engaging very difficult circumstances. They did not give up, but they were focused that change is a constant. Change is possible with focused leadership. Maybe somebody will challenge me and say, oh, Dr. Igale, you didn't talk about Fumilayo Ransom Kuti. I didn't forget her, or the Aba Women Riot of 1929, particularly the Nigerians who are in this class. Fumilayo Ransom Kuti challenged the British authorities at a time that even the male were afraid, were cringing. The Aba women came out in 1929. It was the first attempt at challenging British colonial rule in Africa. Women, they came out and rioted against arbitrary charges, taxes, and so on. And this set up the process for the challenge against colonial rule. So there are so many other examples I can go to, but let me come back to relating this to the concept of focused engagement. All these women at various times ensure that they engage the status quo. They do not watch the status quo and recline to pity parties, but they engage the status quo. And you know, as I do, that before now, in most societies, it was even impossible in certain places for women to come out. But for these women leaders to have come out in a way that they engage society, show that society can change. And they did change society. What is the message to our class? The message to our class today is that we must be focused. The message to our class is that we do not give up. We have to remain consistent in following up on the issues pertaining to mainstreaming. Mainstreaming simply means let us be part of what society is doing. Don't push us to the corner. Don't push us to the back. Let us be equal partners and side by side build society. That is simply what it means. So, as it pertains to leadership, what this means is that while I can concede that adaptive leadership came, well, in the past 30 years as a concept by Ron Hefel and Martin Linke, is their own word. But the knowledge as it pertains to adaptive leadership has been intrinsic with our women leaders in the sense that they've been adaptive, they've been practical, they've been innovative in the way that they engage the male counterparts. You think it was easy for Moremi to go to Oduduwa, to go and tell Oduduwa where men could not go and fight their enemies, to say, I can do it as a woman? No. She must have used some skills, adaptive skills, proper skills of engagement, engaging such strong potentates, or the mother of Obaisigie. No wonder the son has now carved the first stack mask in her perpetual memory to defend her son, or the mother of Nandi, the mother of Chaka the Zulu, to protect her son, make sure he reigned, and she became the commander-in-chief of his army. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that looking back at the past 2 days, there's a hope. The hope is that with proper and continuous engagement of institutions, engagement of the dominant male patriarchal figures, our women can have greater role in being partners with the male in building society. Not only the African society, but global society. Kamala Harris is doing it in the US. Dr. Ngozi Iweala has now been projected to the global scene as the first DG of WTO. A new president has come up in Tanzania, and so on and so forth. So I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share these closing thoughts on this last class of the past 2 days. And my recommendation is that today we celebrate the success that were made thus far, because the women who were ahead of us, the pace setters, have remained focused. These women have engaged tactfully with the men in their generation, consistently tackling patriarchal institutions that tended to exclude women. They persevered and remained dedicated to what they wanted to achieve in spite of challenges. Remain focused and never give up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Thank you for your...
Maybe there are a few questions, so if you have not looked at the chats, but maybe...
Yes, we have a lot of comments in the chat. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. We have so many questions, not questions, we have comments and contributions as you were teaching. People were...
You can share my email, then people can send me a mail and I'll be able to reply.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we'll do. Thank you so much for that. You expertly connected adaptive leadership with gender mainstreaming, and your examples, your historical lessons really hit home and made everything you were talking about very tangible for our listeners. So we thank you so much. Before you go, we just wanted to invite our co-founder one more time to wrap up and say a few words. Thank you again, Dr. Egali. If we can have Ambassador Kemachikwe on, please. Okay, welcome, Ma. You're still muted.
I'm still muted?
No, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador Egali. I wanted to thank you especially for accepting to be on this program, even at short notice. And I want to say something. Each time we've had a masterclass, we have looked at different factors: gender, age, and background, and expertise. You see, we found it very rewarding that we have men speaking about these gender issues. And they bring their own perspective. And these perspectives are critical, because so far the decision makers or takers are still majority men. And we believe that if we talk to ourselves, just as women, it's like storming the teacup, but they break that syndrome. I thank you so much for what you have said. I think the way to overcome the patriarchy and the stereotype, as you said, is adaptive leadership. It's very important. We have to adapt, and the perpetrators will have to adapt too in the leadership. And this is very, very important. You are right that women should be focused. Focused engagement is very important. Sometimes we know in reality that some women get distracted along the way and get maybe intimidated, or lose focus completely. And it's very, very important that we emphasize on this focus. You have done so much, and you use the word pragmatic, which is a very active word for adaptive leadership for women to succeed. Dr. Egali, you seem to have said to us this afternoon that if we want, if we want what we are saying to be heard, then we should take time and say it so that the listener will actually hear it. So we're doing our best. And we are hoping that the listener will hear the efforts the women are making, what they are saying, and their strategy for breaking through and becoming the leaders as desired by society. Talked about change. That change is about women leadership. I thank you so much. I thank Professor Akusin for being the man in the house. T, you were fantastic. In fact, all the speakers, even my friend with the baby, you have done so much for WLI, and our sponsors will be very proud of what we have achieved with this course. I just appeal to you to stay as partners of the Women Leadership Institute. I cannot stop without saying thank you to all the participants. It shows that they're ready. The breakthrough is around the corner. Thank you so much, the director of the Institute, Ms. Somachi Kechuku. Thank you so much, Adora. Thank you so much, Wura. I know I'm not doing the concluding statement. I know you have your way of ending up or rounding up, but since I'm here, I may as well appreciate you. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. We'll meet again. The masterclass is around the corner. You join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador Dr. Kema Chikwe. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. We have come to the end of our teaching session. Thank you all very much for joining us for our 2021 leadership course. It has been an amazing 2 days. I am very appreciative of all the participants, your time, engaging in the comments. Thank you once again to the Institute for the opportunity to moderate this session. It's been wonderful. My name is Wura, and I'll be signing off now and handing over to our program director. Thank you all so much. You're muted, program director.
Okay, I think this is much better. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. I don't think it's morning anywhere anymore. It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure having everyone with us here yesterday and today. Both sessions were incredible. This was our gift for the International Women's Day. And I think Adora and I actually achieved our goal. Adora called me a couple weeks ago. This program was put together in about 10 days. Adora called me a couple weeks ago and she was like, you know, we should really do something in the Institute for Women. And we got in touch with the chairperson. And once she told us we could move on, we were able to network with all our amazing instructors. And of course, Wura, who always delivers our programs so beautifully. And yeah, we did it. And one of our goals in WLI is that when we train or we offer programs, we actually plead is a nice word. I would say beg our participants to please share the knowledge, right? Because when you educate one person, you educate their community. And so everything you've learned in the past 2 days, please share with people around you. If people around you already have the information, there are people looking up to you. I am sure that everyone here is a mentor. I am sure that everyone here has people looking up to them. And we do encourage you to please share this information with them. I've learned so much from yesterday with Hodan and Professor Atkinson, and then today with Ehime and T and Ambassador Egali. Like, it's just been amazing. And I just want to give a special shout out to Ehime because I totally get it. All the while I was here doing the technical work, I'm a mom, I have 4 boys and my 2 nephews live with me. You will not believe what was happening in my background. You know, at some point, Adora knows this, my son got a college admission and I just started crying, but my camera was off. But that's the reality of women, right? We are always multitasking. You can never see a woman doing one thing at a time. We're incapable of doing one thing at a time. And so Ahime's session spoke volumes to me, and it just made me be more comfortable in my role moving forward. And yeah, I have kids, and yes, they'll cry, and yes, sometimes they'll distract my audience, but as long as I stay focused, in the words of Ambassador Egali, we will achieve. So we've spent more time than we designated to, so I'll just let you know how this program will wrap up. We will send emails on Monday morning. Everyone that registered for the course, you will get the summary of the sessions, you will get the videos, and then to get a certificate, there will be a test. So we never give out certificates without testing. And that's the chairperson. If you've read about her, she's a seasoned teacher. She started her career teaching. And so there will be a test. And once you answer the questions and you pass the test, you will get a certificate for attending this amazing leadership course. For more information about the Institute, please visit our website, www.womenli.org. Again, all this information will be in an email you're receiving. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and like I said, please share our content with your colleagues, your co-workers, your family members, for women across the world. And again, like the ambassador said, our chairperson, we love to partner with men. So when you have our information, just don't look for women, look for men and share our information with them, because the Institute, we are committed to mainstream gender in every sector. And we know we will achieve. We've been doing well since we started in 2018, and it will only get better. Again, thank you so much for being here with us. God bless you all. God bless our panelists. God bless our moderator, Wura, and our guests, especially the participants that were here for 2 days, Friday and Saturday. Thank you so much. And it's a wrap. And I'm just going to, Adora, if you could just turn on your camera, let's just relax and smile. And Wura, turn on your camera so people could just see us breathe out and know that we did it. We really did it. And we are so grateful to everyone for this. Wura, Dora, do you have anything you want to say to anyone before we close out?
I just wanted to give a special shout out to Ambassador Kema Chikwe. She is a force. She keeps people on their toes, and I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to serve on the board of WLI. It has been fantastic already, and I know there's so much more great sessions to come, so please join us. Please join us. We're curating so many other fantastic events. And Wura, thank you. Excellent work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the magic behind the scenes. Always.
I know. Thank you. So love, peace, and joy from the Women Leadership Institute. And like the chairperson said, Ambassador Chikwe, our masterclasses are coming up soon. That won't be free. So get yourself a sponsor or sponsor someone. And God bless you guys and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.